That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it is yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, former Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib, and also political commentator Andy Williams. Coming up in my niggle at 4, I will address Dawn Butler head-on for the ridiculous racist comment that she reposted. I mean, let's face it, she's no stranger to race baiting. So for the Great British Debate, I'm asking, should Dawn Butler be stripped of the Labour whip? The post that she shared on X stated that Kemi Badenoch represents white supremacy in blackface. An absolutely absurd thing to repost. So unless we all agree with her way of thinking we are supporting white supremacy, what do you think? I've got a poll up on X asking whether Dawn Butler should be stripped of the Labour whip. Please cast that vote now. I'll also be going live to Tel Aviv to get the latest in the Middle East with Mr. Fire and performer Uri Geller and find out what's on his mind. And with Trump and Harris neck and neck and the US election just 2 days away, Greg Sensen from Republicans Overseas UK will be in the studio to tell us who he thinks will make it into the White House. That is coming up. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. Before we get started, let's get your latest news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much. The top stories. Well, Kemi Badenoch says she'll tell the hard truths to both the country and her party as she began her first full day as Conservative leader. Well, she's vowed to ensure a fresh start for the party ahead of announcing her shadow cabinet. She's also said Partygate was overblown and the government should not have fined people for everyday activities during lockdown. Kemi Badenoch won more than 53,000 votes in the contest, while rival Robert Jenrick received 41,000 votes. Ms Badenoch is expected to name her shadow cabinet in the coming days ahead of their first meeting on Tuesday, with former contenders Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat, Mel Stride and Dame Priti Patel reportedly open to front bench positions. Elsewhere, Labour MP Dawn Butler shared a social media post accusing Kemi Badenoch of representing white supremacy in blackface shortly before she was elected as the new Tory leader. The Brent East MP has since deleted the repost from her X profile. Neither Downing Street nor Dawn Butler have made any comments thus far, and former Conservative Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng told Camilla Tominey there should be disciplinary action.
She's a race baiter. Why has she still got the whip?
Look, that's up to Labour.
What do you think, genuinely?
I genuinely think that, given what she said, she should have the whip removed from her. There should be some discipline and some disciplinary measure against this kind of really hateful device.
I was reminded.
Now, the fallout to Rachel Reeves's budget continues today as she explained that money raised through changes to inheritance tax to farmers will go back to public services. Speaking this morning, the Chancellor said that farmers as well rely on good public services, including the NHS and schools, adding the funds generated by these tax changes will also put public finances on a firm footing. Well, when challenged by Camilla Tominey on the inheritance tax changes, Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury, James Murray, said the existing features of the inheritance tax system will still apply.
This means in practice is that in most cases, if you have a couple who are passing on a farm to the next generation, they will get £2 or £3 million, which is not subject to inheritance tax. So above that £2 or £3 million, so paying no inheritance tax on that first £2 or £3 million, above that, the rate will be half what it is for everyone else.
Now, a joint investigation from both Channel 4 and the Sunday Times has revealed the full details of the property estates owned by King Charles and Prince William. The investigation shows the vast array of commercial property the royal family has built up from the time of medieval monarchs. Their contracts with public bodies are said to include a £37 million agreement with the Ministry of Justice and £11.4 million deal with the Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Trust. A spokesman for the Duchy of Cornwall said that it was a private estate with a commercial imperative, while the Duchy of Lancaster said that their business complies with all relevant UK legislation and regulatory standards. Well, it comes as Prince William travels to South Africa this week for his Earthshot Prize award ceremony, and the prize is hoped to recognise environmental solutions to repair the planet. And now to the US, where there are just 2 days to go until the US election, and shock polling from a traditionally Republican Iowa has placed Democratic candidate Kamala Harris ahead of Donald Trump by 3 points. It comes as Kamala Harris appeared overnight in a comedy sketch on Saturday Night Live in New York, where comedian Maya Rudolph dressed as the current vice president. And polls elsewhere in states such as Pennsylvania and Michigan show that the two candidates are tied ahead of Election Day on Tuesday. Now, a man has died and 6 people have been injured after a late-night car crash in Cornwall. An 18-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving and death by careless driving whilst unfit through drink or drugs. He's been released on bail pending further inquiries. Emergency services were called to reports of a collision between St Tudy and St Breward late on Friday evening. A 19-year-old man, a front-seat passenger in one of the cars, died at the scene. The 6 people taken to hospital are thought to have minor injuries. And protests have erupted in Valencia as King Felipe visited areas affected by the recent flash flooding. Residents in Valencia shouted murderers when the King and Queen arrived in the area, and mud was thrown towards the monarch. Earlier, the royal couple was seen shaking hands and meeting the public before joining a briefing held on site by emergency response teams. The deadliest flash floods in Spain's modern history have killed at least 214 people, and dozens are still unaccounted for 4 days after torrential rains swept the eastern region of Valencia. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. It's back to Nana.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should Dawn Butler be stripped of the Labour whip after she shared a post saying that Kemi Badenoch represents white supremacy in blackface? I've got a poll up on X. It's absolutely absurd. Asking that very question. Cast your vote now. And, of course, ahead of the US presidential election, I'll be heading to the United States in Worldview to speak to the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Dudderidge, as the race appears to be coming down to the wire. So there are growing calls for Labour MP Dawn Butler to have the Labour whip removed by Sir Keir Starmer after she shared a post on X labelling Kemi Badenoch as representing white supremacy in blackface. I mean, what does that actually mean? With the thread also endorsing a win for Badenoch as a victory for racism. She has, of course, since undone the repost, but this hasn't stopped anger over her actions, including from the former Conservative Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng, who spoke to Camilla Tominey on GB News earlier today.
I genuinely think that, given what she said, she should have the whip removed from her. There should be some discipline and some disciplinary measure.
Well, joining me now is GB News' political correspondent, Olivia Utley. Olivia, I don't quite know what that means about the blackface thing. I think it's a little bit silly. But is it time now? What do you think Keir Starmer's response will be for this?
Well, it'll be really interesting. I mean, I suspect that he won't withdraw the whip from Dawn Butler. I think she'll be on a warning for now. There are calls for her to go. We've seen Kwasi Kwarteng there. There's another couple of, including a new black Conservative MP who is calling for Dawn Butler to go. This actually isn't the first time that Dawn Butler has made comments like this. She actually said something very similar about Priti Patel back in 2020 and was given a sort of slap on the wrist then. I mean, that said, Keir Starmer does have a reputation for hitting pretty hard when he feels that people have stepped out of line already since he became Prime Minister back in July it was. He suspended the whip from 8 Labour MPs for voting against him in that child benefit vote. This is slightly different because it was a tweet which has now been withdrawn. It's been withdrawn already, been deleted, and it seems as though the sort of anger over it will be contained. It's not like rebelling in a big parliamentary vote. So I think that Dawn Butler will be able to keep the whip, but I think she'll certainly be on a warning.
But it's not the first time. I mean, as you say, Dawn Butler is renowned for this kind of behaviour, which is out-and-out racism. It's racism, whichever way you look at it. And Diane Abbott got suspended within the Labour Party for, kind of talking about anti-Semitism in the way that she did. And it just seems that this woman needs to go. We can't have that in political parties, can we?
Well, it'll be a decision that's down to Keir Starmer at the end of the day. I think there will be quite a lot of pressure on him, both from within his own party and from outside of it too. But Dawn Butler has her supporters within the Labour Party. And I think that Keir Starmer can't really afford to be sort of shedding MPs left, right and centre, just from a purely political perspective. Yes, he's won this enormous majority, but he doesn't have a hugely big personal vote. In fact, during the election, and even now, his personal popularity ratings are about the same as outgoing Conservative leader Rishi Sunak's. So if he starts sort of hemorrhaging MPs all over the place, he could very quickly find that his parliamentary party turns on him. He isn't in quite as stable a position as the parliamentary arithmetic would suggest. So my instinct is that he has obviously made, or Number 10 has suggested firmly that Dawn Butler delete this tweet. I reckon this will probably be the end of the matter, but as I say, I think she'll be on a warning for next time.
Well, he's got quite a few of them to sort of start considering. I mean, Jazz Athwell's still hanging about after what he did. But Olivia Utley, thank you very much. Right, well, joining me now, Conservative commentator Chris Rose. Chris, welcome to the programme. Really good to talk to you. Chris, in your view, when you hear a comment like that, what goes through your mind? What are you thinking when you see that somebody of Dawn Butler's calibre or stature is retweeting comments like that?
I think it's ridiculous, and I agree that the whip should be suspended from her. I mean, if a Tory MP retweeted something like that about a Labour MP, Keir Starmer would be the first to call for them to be for the whip to be suspended from them. And with Dawn Butler, this isn't just an isolated incident. She's been really, really ridiculous for a while now. Not that long ago, she posted that ridiculous video saying that she was the chosen one, where she included black figures who had very dodgy past as well, and then she had to delete it and then re-upload it without the black figures in it. And I think, she definitely needs to have the whip withdrawn from her just to put his foot down with her. Because I've noticed that with Keir Starmer, he'll suspend someone for anti-Semitism, but when it comes to these types of comments about ethnic minorities in the Tory party, he doesn't seem to take that firm stance. And I think now's the time for him to actually do something, because I can promise you this, it's not going to be the last time Dawn Butler does something if she doesn't have the whip withdrawn from her.
Why do you think that there seems to be this sort of clique of black individuals who are in positions of high power coming out with comments that are inherently very, very racist? I hear that and I think, what, so I'm not the right kind of black person because you're the good guys and I'm the bad one because I don't agree with you or I have a different political standpoint to you?
Yeah, I think it's because they think that they can just get away with it because they've always been told that, their view is the right type of view, and people like me were just, with sellouts or coconuts or whatever they want to call us. And I think, it's, if Keir Starmer doesn't put his foot down and suspend the whip, I can imagine it will be free for all the other ones who want to say something just as racist about Kemi. Because I can promise you, when things get going, they will absolutely try to smear her as other not quite nasty, divisive words. And somehow in their mind, they think that they're the ones who are being the good ones, when actual facts, they'd be surprised how many black people will agree with Kemi on some points, even if they don't vote Conservatives.
Yeah.
And that's the, the Keir Starmer, he needs to, he's looking quite weak. I mean, he should have suspended the whip from her yesterday, immediately. So even now, it's still too late. I mean, what is taking him so long? That's what I want to know.
It's almost as though he's not taking racism seriously, which it is, even if it is supposedly black on black, which is what this is. And it does sort of then highlight that when these people then complain about racism, they literally haven't got a leg to stand on. I mean, how can Dawn Butler, after retweeting such an obnoxious post, which is deeply offensive and racist, how can she even now stand on a plinth of anti-racism?
Exactly. I mean, they've lost all authority to talk about racism as long as Dawn Butler retains the whip. I mean, this is a very hypocritical government, so it wouldn't surprise me if she does retain the whip and they still try to talk about racism in other ranks. I mean, it's just ridiculous, really.
Well, you'd think they'd be happy as well that Kemi Badenoch is actually leading a political party. Isn't that a good thing? You would think that they would think, well, hey, that's wonderful. A woman of colour leading the second largest political party in this country.
You'd think so, but I mean, they love to say elevate black voices, but when it's not a voice they agree with, somehow it's the worst thing to happen to humanity, apparently. I mean, I read one tweet yesterday that said it was actually the worst thing to happen to Britain, because just to black British people, because it was a voice that they disagreed with. And I just think, a lot of this toxic, divisive nonsense doesn't surprise me, but I think with Kemi as the leader now, we're going to see a lot more of it. And thankfully, she has a very thick skin, so she's able to, not let these quite stupid comments affect her. She's going to crack on, and hopefully she'll put them to shame.
And what are your thoughts on Kemi leading the Conservative Party?
To me, it feels like a bit of a breath of fresh air and a bit of hope injected into what was a Tory corpse that we had since the general election. So I think, she has my full support, and I hope her all the best, and I think she'll succeed very well.
Well, I can't wait to hear her at PMQs going up against Keir Starmer and all the other Labour Party, because she's not shy at all, and she's quite direct, so I'm really looking forward to that. Well, listen, Chris, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. What would you urge, in terms of politicians who feel that what she's saying is unacceptable, would you urge them to speak up against this?
Absolutely. I mean, at the moment, none of our colleagues have said anything about Dawn Butler. And I think if they want to have their, authority to talk about racism, they need to talk about this in their own ranks as well. Because probably, as I said before, it's not going to be the last time this happens, and they need to put their foot down and put pressure on Keir Starmer to withdraw the whip. Otherwise, they just look ridiculous.
All right, Chris, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. That is Conservative commentator Chris Rose. Well, if you just tuned in, welcome. 17 minutes after 3 o'clock. It's going to be a fab show. We're going to have lots to talk about. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. Coming up at 3:40, we'll be crossing live to the United States to speak to Paul Duddridge ahead of the presidential election. But next, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should Dawn Butler be stripped of the Labour whip? This is GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Young adults spend a few years living away from home at university, those who go to university, but many then have no choice but to move back in with their parents because of the rising cost of renting.
But is this an excuse? And are Gen Z or Z just being lazy?
I mean, what do you make of it, Debbie? Because we do have to have some sympathy, don't we, in that, you know, rents are very high, it's very hard to get a mortgage. There are issues there.
I think the push towards young people to go to university as well is not necessarily the right thing for a lot of people. And I think people should start work early. These guys leave their universities with a huge amount of debt, no jobs, or huge rent. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. So I think we've got to look at the work ethic and start it younger. Because I think it's so easy just to move back with your mum and dad, isn't it?
To speak like a Gen Zer, they would say that, well, it's OK for your generation, you had it easy.
Realistically, that isn't quite that true, because a lot of people then didn't go to university. This is a relatively new thing that everybody goes to university.
I have to say, what strikes me today is that you still have, amongst all these problems, not having enough money, going to university when perhaps you shouldn't be, all these sort of issues, you still get all these people saying, well, I'm going to have a year out.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. And I think the thing is, they say, oh, it was easy for you, but it wasn't really. We still had to rent places.
But the thing is with this debate, Debbie, is the generation we're talking about, Gen Z, who we're accusing of being lazy, have been raised by our generation.
Yeah.
So what have we done wrong that, if they are lazier, has made them like that?
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon. Welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome. Right, well, we're going to have some fun this afternoon because, of course, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should Dawn Butler be stripped of the Labour whip? Now, she's the Labour MP for Brent East, and she shared a post on Twitter that said that Badenoch's win was a victory for racism, and then she accused her of being a white supremacist in blackface. I'm sorry, but that's almost clown-like. I mean, what is she talking about? She has, of course, now removed the repost, but why would you repost something so absurd like that? This is the quality of our politicians here. It's just totally unacceptable. So I'm asking for the Great British Debate this hour, should Dawn Butler be stripped of the Labour whip? Well, joining me now to discuss this, political commentator Andy Williams, and also former Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. Welcome. Right, I'm going to start with you. Andy Williams, you're more left-leaning, you are a Labour supporter.
I am.
What is your thoughts on this?
I think they should suspend the whip. Dawn Butler has a pretty long history of doing and saying some quite stupid things. This is just the latest. If you are... People need to realise, and MPs particularly need to realise, because we should hold MPs to a higher standard, that if you are tweeting or retweeting things, that is publishing. You are putting... It's not a game. It's out there. It's publishing a view. And this was a ridiculous thread. I've read the thread. And... It's unacceptable. We should hold Dawn Butler to the same standard as we would someone on the right. And if someone on the right had tweeted this, they would rightly be castigated, and so should she be.
Ben Habib.
So, Dawn Butler has very little to offer this country, I think, as you indicated. And when she described Kemi Badenoch as a white supremacist, or a white supremacist with a black face, I mean, what she's actually conceding is that the whole identity politics debate on which she basically stands, her position is all about identity politics, that she's lost that debate, that the whole identity politics, the DEI agenda, the promotion of minority rights to the detriment of the majority, all of that, she's saying, I can't have the debate any longer because Kemi Badenoch trounces my arguments. Her presence, her beliefs trounce the argument. And so guess what? I'm going to change that which is Kemi Badenoch, a black lady, into a white supremacist, because that's the only way my arguments continue to hold water. And so she's conceded the identity politics argument. And, I mean, who cares whether she has the whip removed for a week or more? For me, what really matters is, and we touched on this before we went live, is that people like Kemi Badenoch shouldn't be parliamentary prospective candidates, they shouldn't be parliamentary candidates, and they shouldn't be in Parliament because they have nothing to offer this country.
Not Kemi Badenoch? You don't think she's...
Not Kemi, sorry. Did I say Kemi?
Yes, you did.
I meant Dawn Butler.
Yeah.
Forgive me, Dawn Butler have nothing to offer the country. And anything short of permanently removing the whip and forcing a by-election in her constituency, I think doesn't send an adequate message.
Because I don't get it why these people are allowed to peddle out this racism, because that's what it is. She's ultimately calling Kemi Badenoch a coconut or Oreo, one of those things. She's saying that basically because Kemi Badenoch is not peddling the same narrative as her, that Kemi Badenoch is a white person in disguise. So she's actually wearing a black face.
What's so frustrating about it is that she will... I think there are all sorts of reasons to have... I take issue with all sorts of things Kemi Badenoch thinks and says, but the fact that she's a black woman is irrelevant. And I think Dawn Butler, by doing this, undermines, right on the very first day of her leadership of the Conservative Party, undermines Labour's efforts to explain to the public why Kemi Badenoch is not the right person to be Prime Minister.
But also, what does Dawn Butler want? Does she want all black people to remain in a silo of sameness where we only just say exactly the same things and we represent and we don't succeed, we don't achieve? Is that what
a continued promulgation of the theory that all black people, all ethnic minorities are basically victims, that they all need special breaks in life in order to get on, that they can't get... It's actually very patronising.
It's really patronising.
You can't get on in real life unless you have these special breaks, and anyone who wishes to treat British citizens equally, which, should be the default position, is effectively standing in opposition to this progressive discrimination, which is nothing more than discrimination agenda, on which Dawn Butler stands. But, of course, Dawn Butler couldn't really care whether we're getting our little knickers in a twist over it, because she's ticked all the boxes with her constituency. They would have heard her say what she says and go, yeah, well done, Dawn. Who cares? You get a slap on the wrist.
Well, they might not have. A lot of them probably actually object to it. But
well, I would hope so. I would hope so. But they did elect her, so presumably they like her.
Well, maybe, but... you can't have somebody like that running anything, really, because it's racist. This is, to me, out-and-out racism, and we saw what happened.
But, Nana, that's what we've got. We've got a regulatory framework which is racist. I was watching the rugby yesterday, England versus New Zealand. I don't know if either of you watched it. Yeah. But before the kick-off, there was a long entreaty over the tannoy to the stadium, impeaching people not to be racist. It's a game of rugby. How did racism enter that debate? We're becoming, in the pursuit of apparently eradicating racism, we are embedding racism.
Perpetuating.
We're making it much, much worse than it ever was. When I was a boy growing up in this country, we didn't talk about racism anywhere near as much as they do now. I was half Pakistani. I came to this country with a Pakistani accent. No one picked on me in the way that apparently everyone is now picked on. It is absurd.
Well, I mean, I grew up in Newcastle, which I had such a lovely time. People wanted to touch my afro hair. What's your hair like, Bet? How does it feel? And I loved it. The people were wonderful. They were so kind to me. They were wonderful to my family, mostly white people there. In fact, they were all white because we were the only black people in the village, which we loved. But it was just really lovely growing up. Yes, there were always a few racists out there, but nobody really told me that I was black, as it were. I didn't really grow up going, oh, I'm black. I just got on with it. So why have we been forced to this diet of, oppression all the time?
Well, all I would say, though, is that wasn't everyone's experience, right?
Well, you can't have everyone's experience.
No, of course. I'm just saying that clearly other black and ethnic minority people have experienced racism during their lives.
I did experience racism. Yeah. All I'm saying is the majority of people were not racist. There are always a few clowns, but this woman Dawn Abbott is turning into one. She can't talk about racism when she herself is being racist.
All I would say about Dawn Butler is she's been a Labour MP on and off I think she lost her seat and came back. She's been a Labour MP for quite a long time. She's never been given any significant ministerial or other position, and there's no reason for that.
Well, she's still there in the party, and you can't have that in the party. I think it needs to be removed. I agree with Ben that nothing short of actual proper suspension from the party, completely
permanent suspension, but removal from the party. Absolutely, it's intolerable. But she gets away with it because
she's black.
Because she's black, and because progressive discrimination, which is just discrimination, is now part of our regulatory and legal framework through the Equalities Act, through the practice of diversity, equity and inclusion. We are all encouraged to be racist. That's what we are. We are genuinely encouraged to be racist in the pursuit, the apparent pursuit of levelling the playing field between the various ethnicities in this country. But no amount of discrimination results in equity. You have to just keep driving the agenda of equity. Even Martin LutherKing got it.
Yes, he said
it. It's the content of your character that matters,
not the colour of your skin.
Not the colour of his skin. Get away from the colour of his skin.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to laud the fact that she is the first black woman to lead a political party in this way. It's great, but it's just simply a fact. It doesn't mean that she's going to be better than somebody of a different colour. And yes, she is the first, so that is a fact. But I agree, it's totally irrelevant. So
well, and even she herself has said that,
yes,
hasn't she? She actually, if you see her in interviews being asked about it, I think she's almost quite... Yes, yeah. She's almost quite frustrated in saying, actually, can we move on from this now? Because I want to talk about what I believe.
She's actually very good on identity politics.
Yes, she is.
You know, she's, with the exception of one comment, I think, about David Tennant when she described him as a white man or something. He said something. He wanted her dead or something like that.
Well, his comments were saying that
he said she should shut up.
She should shut up.
No, he said that he envisaged a world where she no longer existed, and she should shut up and go away. So I think that really that wasn't great.
But with that exception,
no, I think that she was right.
She was right. You think?
Point that
but some people have criticised her for it. But that aside, she is strong on the fact that identity politics has to stop, and we should all be strong about it. This isn't some kind of irrelevant cultural war. Identity politics gets to the heart of the way this country is governed, and apart from anything else, it stands in opposition to meritocracy. We will not be a great, prosperous country if jobs are allocated, promotions are allocated, prime ministerial favour is allocated on the colour of your skin.
I think, Ben, you're overestimating the extent to which voters care about this. I really do.
Do you think so?
I do.
What do you mean when you say care about? Care about what?
About the sort of identity politics.
But the identity politics issue, Andy, is embedded. I have to practice identity politics as CEO of my company. I have to have a policy on DEI. I have to publish that policy on DEI. It goes to all the investors who buy shares in my company. It goes to all the lenders who lend money.
Well, I think that's a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing.
We shouldn't have any DEI. Everyone's equal.
But if they were, then we wouldn't need it, but they're not.
Well, we don't know, but because we're doing this, we aren't making them unequal. So by having this, that you're going to give that person a little bit of a break because of that, and that person a bit of a break because of that, there'll never be equality.
Even the Criminal Sentencing Commission a few months ago came out and said you should take someone's background into account when sentencing them.
Well, I don't agree with that.
Where did the principle of justice being blind, where did that go?
Why can't we just live in a society where we just promote people who are doing good things and look just on the content of their character, not the colour of their skin? And people like Dawn Butler, well, she needs to have a bit of a rethink. And so, Keir Starmer, you need to do something about that one. Right, you're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GBNews. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, my Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is Rachel Reeves's budget impossible to sell? First, let's get your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much. The top stories. Well, Kemi Badenoch says she'll tell the hard truths to both the country and her party as she began her first full day as Conservative leader. She's vowed to ensure a fresh start for the party ahead of announcing her shadow cabinet. She's also said Partygate was overblown and the government should not have fined people for everyday activities during lockdown. Kemi Badenoch won more than 53,000 votes in the contest, while rival Robert Jenrick received 41,000. Ms Badenoch is expected to name her shadow cabinet in the coming days ahead of their first meeting on Tuesday with former contenders Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat, Mel Stride and Dame Priti Patel reportedly open to front bench positions. Elsewhere, Labour MP Dawn Butler shared a social media post accusing Kemi Badenoch of representing white supremacy in blackface shortly before she was elected as the new Tory leader. The Brent East MP has since deleted the repost from her X profile. Neither Downing Street nor Dawn Butler have made any comments. The fallout to Rachel Reeves's budget continues today as she explained the money raised through changes to inheritance tax to farmers will go back to public services. Speaking this morning, the Chancellor said that farmers as well rely on good public services, including the NHS and schools, adding the funds generated by these tax changes will also put public finances on a firm footing. And a joint investigation from both Channel 4 and the Sunday Times has revealed the full details of the property estates owned by King Charles and Prince William. The investigation shows the vast array of commercial property the royal family has built up from the time of medieval monarchs. Their contracts with public bodies are said to include a £37 million agreement with the Ministry of Justice and an £11.4 million deal with Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Trust. A spokesman for the Duchy of Cornwall said it was a private estate with a commercial imperative, while the Duchy of Lancaster said their business complies with all relevant UK legislation. And it comes as Prince William travels to South Africa this week for his Earthshot Prize award ceremony. The prize is hoped to recognise environmental solutions to repair the planet. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. Now it's back to Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. We often refer to high pressure as our fair weather friends, but many of us may not be feeling particularly friendly towards the area of high pressure that we have at the moment because it is trapping a lot of cloud across much of the UK. And because high pressure is a blocking pattern, it can stay with us for a long period of time. The cloud is also going to be lingering with us for quite a while as well. If you do have any fireworks celebrations this evening, the cloud may bring the odd spot of drizzle in places, particularly around Irish Sea coastal districts. But underneath that cloud, temperatures will hold up, so many of us will be on the positive side of the temperature scale. But a patchy frost is possible across the far north of Scotland, where we do see some clearer spells around. As you start off the new working week then, do be prepared for a widespread amount of grey skies above you. Again, there will be the odd spot of drizzle to watch out for, particularly along this western side of things. Most of England and Wales managing to stay dry at least. For the start of Monday morning, the best of that brightness is once again going to be across northern areas of Scotland. As we do head throughout the rest of the day, though, there is the potential that we start to see a few more breaks developing at times, particularly for western parts of Northern Ireland, western Wales, parts of Cornwall, but also maybe in the far southeast of England, just seeing a bit of influence from this clearing skies over France and continental Europe. Temperatures tomorrow probably down by a degree or so compared to what we do see today. Most of us seeing the thermometer rise to around 11 to 13 degrees Celsius and feeling quite chilly where you are stuck underneath that widespread cloud. Into the evening, again, the cloud will be quite stagnant for most of us. Where we do start to see a few breaks developing, though, there is the potential that that allows for some fog developing overnight. So it could be quite misty and murky first thing on Tuesday morning for many of us. The cloud, as I've mentioned, is really going to be staying with us throughout much of the next few days, but it will be turning a little bit milder. Bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 38 minutes after 3 o'clock. If you just tuned in, welcome. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. And now lots of you have been getting in touch with your thoughts, so gbnews.com/your say. But now it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is Rachel Reeves' budget impossible to sell? The Chancellor's budget, which features the biggest tax rises in a generation, has prompted fierce backlash. Rachel Reeves is under fire from Labour backbenchers who have said her budget is impossible to sell to horrified constituents, and this comes as the government's fiscal watchdog cut its growth forecasts for most of this decade. Not a surprise, is it really, if you charge employers national insurance and increase that? That's not going to work out. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is Rachel Reeves' budget impossible to sell? Well, joining me now to discuss, political commentator Andy Williams and former Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. Ben Habib, I'm going to come to you straight away. Is her budget impossible to sell? And if so, which bits?
Well, she had marketed the budget as a budget for growth and a budget, you know, for entrepreneurs, for getting the United Kingdom back on a firm footing, and promoting the working class. And actually, what she did was kick each one of those constituents in the shins. This was a very bad budget for the working class because the threshold at which employers' NIC is levied was reduced from £9,000 per annum salary to £5,000. That's a regressive form of taxation because it's hitting the lowest paid the hardest. And, of course, the 1.2% on earnings, again, is a much more significant number if you're a median wage earner than it is if you're a 45% taxpayer. And there are only two ways an employer can deal with this charge. The first is not to give salary rises, tolerate the pain for the short term, and then when it comes to salary rises, not give them. So that hurts the working class. Or sack people. And sacking people is a terrible outcome because that doesn't just impact the individual who's obviously been sacked, but it has an adverse impact on the state because the state now has to pay benefits to the individual who has been sacked. And at the same time as delivering this budget, they've also got the employment bill going through Parliament, which removes a lot of flexibility from employers in terms of having 0 hours contracts. So if your bill for employment has gone up, you don't have the flexibility to only take employees when you need them. If you're running a hospitality business, she also put up business rates, and she put up minimum wage. So NIC is up, minimum wage is up, business rates are up. If you're running a coffee shop, for example, every single cost that you pay has just gone up. And if you borrowed money in order to buy that coffee shop or to...
The interest rates have gone up.
The interest rates have just gone up, so your borrowing costs have just gone up. And then if you want to bequeath that little business that you've developed to your children, you're now going to have to pay death duty on it. And that, a lot of people are focused on farming, and rightly so, because farms are going to be in the crosshairs of, you know, that form of patrician ownership, which goes from generation to generation, which is so crucial for maintaining skills in our society and for having that real sense of ownership beyond the short term, you know, that long-term thinking.
Well, also for providing food for the nation.
And providing food for the nation. That's going to be impacted severely as a result of the inheritance tax increases, but it's also going to hit businesses because when a business owner, this theoretical owner of a coffee shop business dies, his children are now going to have to pay a 20% tax on his death, and that'll be financed either by closing the business down or raising debt or doing something else which is damaging to the business. This was an anti-business budget.
Well, also, if you were in the public sector, though, then the NI, employers' NI, does not go up at all. So you're all right.
And that proves the point. That proves the point.
Yeah.
It was an anti-private sector budget.
And the private sector is the area where growth...
That is the only area that generates wealth.
It's anti-growth. Andy Williams.
I agree with a lot of what Ben said. You know, clearly, personally, I wouldn't have put up employer national insurance. I think it's a bad thing. Bad for businesses, you're right. The private sector drives growth. However, I think we have to look at the position that Rachel Reeves found herself in, which is that we have completely broken public services, totally broken. And you either have to make a choice that we're not going to put more money into public services and leave them broken and let them wither on the vine, or we have to invest in them. And I think Rachel Reeves has made a political choice to tax more in order to fund both more day-to-day spending and investment in the NHS, but also, and I think this is where actually there's a really positive story in the budget, is that we've freed up lots of money, tens of billions, for capital investment in the long term. Now that is not going to pay.
By changing the debt rules, though.
Yes, it was.
Which means that interest rates go up, and also we then do not become an attractive investment to things.
Interest rates may go up by about 0.25% as a result of that. That's, I think, what is forecast. But we do need to be invested. For too long in this country, we have not invested in the long term. We have not.
She promised she wouldn't change the fiscal rules, and she has.
Well, I think it's perfectly fine to U-turn on that. I don't actually have a problem with politicians U-turning as long as they end up in the right place. What frustrates me, and I was saying this before the election, is that we weren't honest. Labour were not honest. Nobody was honest in the run-up to the general election about the fact that taxes were going to have to go up to pay for broken public services being fixed. Well, I would have preferred that she had said she did, and I'd have preferred that she had been honest and said, well, for example, we're going to have to reverse the 2p cut in national insurance on individuals, which would be painful, but I think would have been a better decision than the employer national insurance.
Again, I'd like to say a few words. I mean, I completely agree that our infrastructure is in a really parlous state, but a significant proportion of the money she raised is going to simply be tipped into the NHS. It's a black hole, the NHS. We need we need reform. We need reform of the NHS, and her spending plans are basically not coming with any restructuring of our infrastructure. And where I would have liked to have seen infrastructure promoted was fixing our potholes. She put 500 million against fixing our potholes. You know, having roads that work are pretty important. Making sure that the country has 5G across the country.
Absolutely.
That's, you know, it's vital. There are parts of London I can't get a 4G signal, let alone 5G. And, you know, these are areas which promote growth, areas of spending which would have promoted growth, and she hasn't done it. And the other thing I just want to quickly mention is that they say that borrowing costs will have to stay up 0.25% as a result of it. Actually, no one knows how significant future borrowing requirements are going to be. The OBR is saying £32 billion a year. If it's more than that, we could find that she's unable to finance the public debt, in which case we're off to the IMF with cap in hand.
It's terrible, terrible. All right, well, what do you think? gbnews.com/your say. Next, I'll be crossing live to the US to speak to the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Duddridge, ahead of the US presidential election.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This week is Chocolate Week, the ultimate celebration of everything rich, sweet and indulgent.
Yes, and we now have the best person in the studio with us to satisfy all of your chocolate cravings. We're joined now by master chocolatier Ollie the Choc. Ollie,
hello.
Really good to see you this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And you brought some of your chocolate in with you.
I did. I brought some tasting samples. You're very welcome to help yourself.
So what have you got here? Tell us.
So this is my signature chocolate. I call it the Holy Grail. It's got sea salt flakes, crushed Oreo, caramel fudge pieces, very Moorish.
I love a caramel and salt combo, just, you know. I feel like you see it everywhere now. Look,
you won't be disappointed.
Look, I want everyone to see a close-up of this one. Can we get a shot on this one? So this is Oreo, there we are, caramel and salt. Do you want to try some?
You go first.
Help yourselves. And then this bar of chocolate is a little bit of a wild card. That's a mystery flavour. So
OK, I love a mystery.
I'm not going to tell you what that is.
Hold on this one. This one's amazing.
Are you?
Oreo, caramel.
That's my biggest seller.
I'll keep my palate clean for this. So this is a mystery flavour.
You've got to guess what that is.
Is that a nut in there, I see? Right, here we go. Ready?
I'm not saying anything.
Talk us through.
Very crunchy.
For me, I'm all about textures in chocolate.
Me too.
It has got a good crunch to it, hasn't it? It's not the kind of flavour that you would expect.
Oh, I can't get it.
Is it sweet? Is it salty?
No, it's salty, yeah.
It's salty.
Hang on, bit more.
OK.
Bit more.
I mean, just keep going.
Crisps? Wait,
It is crispy, it's crunchy. Could it be crisps?
I think it could be crisps. Yeah, it's crisps.
So what flavour?
Salt and vinegar. Cheese and onion.
Yes, nailed it. You know.
Oh, you're much better than me.
Love that.
Do you know what? I think I've got a bit of a cold, so my taste buds are off.
Oh, you're going to blame that, are you?
That's my excuse. That's delicious.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? It's fine. You're here now. Let's travel over to America because we're going to speak to the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Doddridge, to find out what is going on stateside as we get closer to the US elections. OK, so the National Guard is on standby for potential unrest. What is going on, Paul Doddridge?
They're calling out the National Guard in certain states. I think Oregon, Washington. We're expecting unrest on the night of the election in certain states. And I think that's probably going to be across many, certainly the swing states. But yes, already the National Guard is on alert for Tuesday night.
Now, will they disqualify Trump even if he wins? Because I'm hearing rumours that if he does win, they'll try and unwin him.
Yeah, exactly. This is the rumour now that what will the Democrats do? I'll tell you the one thing we can guarantee is Trump is going to declare victory on Tuesday night. OK, so there won't be any concession. No matter what the result, Trump will declare victory. What the Democrats and the establishment are looking to do, we believe, and certainly this is the rumour, is to disqualify him. And basically, Liz Cheney made some comments about, you know, she's very kind of hawkish on war. And Trump, in an interview the other day, said that basically, look, if she likes war so much, she should go and try it, you know? And now the Attorney General of Arizona, I believe it is investigating these comments to see if they cross the line into any kind of physical threat. And the word disqualification, this would disqualify him from being president, is being bandied about. And Kamala herself, Vice President of the US, let's not forget, has said, yes, those comments would disqualify him. So I think that there is a move, should he win on Tuesday, to seek ways to disqualify him from actually being elected president.
They literally will try absolutely anything and everything. It's actually quite frightening. What about...
Yes.
But even so, we hear that Kamala Harris is leading in Iowa, which is one of those big swing states, as I understand.
It's not usually a swing state. It should be pretty hardcore red. It should be Trump's.
Really?
Look, we talked about this the other... Yes, it should be, but it's not. It hasn't been in the collection of 7 swing states at this point. This is a complete new outlier. But having said that, we talked the other day about the fact that 55% of all early votes are women. And so that could be in reflection of the Roe v. Wade repealing a couple of years ago, 2022. And so as long as the Republicans actually vote on the day, as long as Republican supporters actually vote on the day, we might see that balance out. But it's the first positive news that she's had in polling for quite a few days. And it is a bit of a weird outlier. And so the Democrats are making a lot of hay out of the fact that suddenly Iowa's in play for them.
So it's not really the biggest deal at the moment. Then, all right. Well, what about the?
No.
What about both of them? Apparently, preparing for a legal battle.
They're straight away. This is what's going to be happening. I mean, I might as well just sleep through Tuesday night because we're not going to decide on Tuesday or Wednesday what the result is. It looks like either way we're going to be counting and recounting and legal battles. Trump's campaign, again, it's because, see, Trump was actually in office last time, so everything they throw at him that he tried to overturn the election, it's just like, obviously he didn't, you know? But he definitely wanted to exercise every right that he had as president. he has no power in that department anymore, but he does have legal recourse. So he's going to be, again, if it's knife edge on particular states, those states come down to particular counties, he's going to be finding persuadable county election officials to maybe reject the result. That would be a legal strategy that he would employ. Look, everybody on my side is hoping that it is a definitive victory for Trump on Tuesday. However, with some of the figures and some of the early voting results, it looks like it's going to be a knife edge either way. And that's going to serve the sitting vice president as well. It's, you know, it's what sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. It's going to be that if it's on a knife edge, if we are negligible amounts of votes between them, it's going to be legal battle, legal battle. Her team has hired, Steve Bannon's just been released from jail. Steve Bannon was the architect, if you like, of Trump's philosophical and political success. He just came out of jail. He's pointing out that the Harris campaign have appointed Mark Elias, who is, as Bannon says, the #1 election lawyer in the country. So they are expecting to go to the mattresses.
All right, we're running out of time, so it's really good to talk to you. That's Paul Dutteridge, host of the Politics People podcast. Next, my niggle on Labour MP Dawn Butler. But let's get an update first with your weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. We often refer to high pressure as our fair weather friends, but many of us may not be feeling particularly friendly towards the area of high pressure that we have at the moment, because it is trapping a lot of cloud across much of the UK. And because high pressure is a blocking pattern, it can stay with us for a long period of time. The cloud is also going to be lingering with us for quite a while as well. If you do have any fireworks celebrations this evening, the cloud may bring the odd spot of drizzle in places, particularly around Irish Sea coastal districts. But underneath that cloud, temperatures will hold up, so many of us will be on the positive side of the temperature scale. But a patchy frost is possible across the far north of Scotland, where we do see some clearer spells around. As you start off the new working week, then, do be prepared for a widespread amount of grey skies above you. Again, there will be the odd spot of drizzle to watch out for, particularly along this western side of things. Most of England and Wales managing to stay dry at least. For the start of Monday morning, the best of that brightness is once again going to be across northern areas of Scotland. As we do head throughout the rest of the day, though, there is the potential that we start to see a few more breaks developing at times, particularly for western parts of Northern Ireland, western Wales, parts of Cornwall, but also maybe in the far southeast of England, just seeing a bit of influence from this clearing skies over France and continental Europe. Temperatures tomorrow probably down by a degree or so compared to what we do see today. Most of us seeing the thermometer rise to around 11 to 13 degrees Celsius and feeling quite chilly where you are stuck underneath that widespread cloud. Into the evening, again, the cloud will be quite stagnant for most of us. Where we do start to see a few breaks developing, though, there is the potential that allows for some fog developing overnight. So it could be quite misty and murky first thing on Tuesday morning for many of us. The cloud, as I've mentioned, is really going to be staying with us throughout much of the next few days, but it will be turning a little bit milder. Bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could win Christmas on us this year. There's cash, £20,025 in tax-free cash to make your new year go with a bang. There's also £5,000 to spend on all the gifts. We've also got Christmas lunch for you, with £500 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a festive GB News goodie bag. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua and for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, former Deputy Leader of Reform UK Ben Habib and also political commentator Andy Williams. Coming up in my niggle at 4, I will address Dawn Butler head-on for the ridiculous racist comment that she reposted. I mean, let's face it, she is no stranger to race baiting. So for the Great British Debate, I'm asking, should Dawn Butler be stripped of the Labour whip? There was a post that she shared on X stating that Kemi Badenoch represents white supremacy in blackface, and absolutely a third thing to repost. So unless, of course, I agree with her way of thinking, I'm supporting white supremacy. What do you think? Answer my poll at gbnews.com/your say or go to X and cast your vote. I'll also be going live to Tel Aviv to get the latest in the Middle East with Mr. Fire and performer Uri Geller and find out what's on his mind. And with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris neck and neck and the US election just 2 days away, Greg Swenson from Republicans Overseas UK will be in the studio to tell us what he thinks about who will make it into the White House. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. Well, Kemi Badenoch says she'll tell the hard truth to both the country and her party as she began her first full day as Conservative leader. She's vowed to ensure a fresh start for the party ahead of announcing her shadow cabinet. She has also said Partygate was overblown and the government should not have fined people for everyday activities during lockdown. Kemi Badenoch won more than 53,000 votes in the contest, while Robert Jenrick received 41,000. Ms Badenoch is expected to name her shadow cabinet in the coming days ahead of their first meeting on Tuesday, with former contenders Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat, Mel Stride and Dame Priti Patel reportedly open to front bench positions. Elsewhere, Labour MP Dawn Butler shared a social media post accusing Kemi Badenoch of representing white supremacy in blackface shortly before she was elected as the new Tory leader. The Brent East MP has since deleted the repost from her X profile. Neither Downing Street nor Dawn Butler have made any comments. Former Conservative Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng told Camilla Tominey there should be disciplinary action.
She's a race baiter. Why has she still got the whip?
Look, that's up to Labour.
But what do you think, genuinely?
I genuinely think that, given what she said, she should have the whip removed from her.
there should be some discipline and some disciplinary measure against this kind of really hateful divisiveness.
I was reminded. Rachel Reeves says the money raised through changes to inheritance tax to farmers will go back to public services. The Chancellor says farmers also rely on good public services, including the NHS and schools, adding the funds generated by these tax changes will also put public finances on a firm footing. When challenged by Camilla Tominey on the inheritance tax changes, Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury James Murray said the existing features of the inheritance tax system will still apply.
This means in practice is that in most cases, if you have a couple who are passing on a farm to the next generation, they will get £2 or £3 million, which is not subject to inheritance tax. So above that £2 or £3 million, so paying no inheritance tax on that first £2 or £3 million, above that, the rate will be half what it is for everyone else.
In other news, a joint investigation from both Channel 4 and the Sunday Times has revealed the full details of the property estates owned by King Charles and Prince William. The investigation shows the vast array of commercial property the royal families built up from the time of medieval monarchs. Their contracts with public bodies are said to include a £37 million agreement with the Ministry of Justice and an £11.4 million deal with Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Trust. A spokesman for the Duchy of Cornwall said it was a private estate with commercial imperative, while the Duchy of Lancaster said their business complies with all relevant UK legislation and regulatory standards. It comes as Prince William travels to South Africa this week for his Earthshot Prize award ceremony. The prizes hope to recognise environmental solutions to repair the planet. There are now just 2 days to go until the US election, and shock polling from a traditionally Republican Iowa has placed Democratic candidate Kamala Harris ahead of Donald Trump by 3 points. It comes as Kamala Harris appeared overnight in a comedy sketch on Saturday Night Live in New York, where comedian Maya Rudolph dressed as the current vice president. Polls elsewhere in states such as Pennsylvania and Michigan show the two candidates are tied ahead of Election Day on Tuesday. A man has died and 6 people have been injured after a late-night car crash in Cornwall. An 18-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving and death by careless driving while unfit through drink or drugs. He's been released on bail pending further inquiries. Emergency services were called to reports of a collision between St Tudy and St Breward late on Friday evening. A 19-year-old man, a front-seat passenger in one of the cars, died at the scene. The 6 people taken to hospital are thought to have minor injuries. And protests have erupted in Valencia as King Felipe visited areas affected by recent flash flooding. Residents shouted murderers when the King and Queen arrived in the area and mud was thrown towards the monarch. Earlier, the royal couple was seen shaking hands and meeting the public before joining a briefing held on site by emergency response teams. The deadliest flash floods in Spain's modern history have killed at least 214 people, and dozens are still unaccounted for 4 days after that torrential rain swept the eastern region of Valencia. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
Good afternoon, welcome. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's fast approaching 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is why I love Kemi Badenoch. Here she is making mincemeat out of Dawn Butler.
Question to the Minister is, the government briefed a clear message well in advance of this report landing. Why did the government do that?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I think it is disgusting that a member of this House will stand up and accuse people of being racial gatekeepers. This is the same nonsense we have heard time and time again, calling people Uncle Toms, calling people house Negroes and house slaves, and calling them racial gatekeepers. The fact that she is able to stand here and use that phrase without any shame whatsoever just shows how far the Labour Party has fallen.
Now, instead of seeing Kemi Badenoch leading the Tory party as a mark of success and real progress in race relations, out come the usual suspects to peddle their grift. The likes of Dawn Butler out there reminding us where our place as black people should in their eyes be and what real black people should be thinking. Yesterday, just before the new Tory party leader was elected, Dawn Butler, Labour MP for Brent East, shared a social media post accusing Kemi Badenoch of representing white supremacy in blackface. Dawn appeared to endorse comments which also referred to Mrs Badenoch's election as a victory for racism. The main tweet included 7 rules of surviving Kemi Badenoch victory, and it read, "Today, the most prominent member of white supremacy's black collaborator class is likely to be made leader of the Conservative Party. Here are some handy tips for surviving the immediate surge of Badenochism, i.e. white supremacy in blackface." Of course, a victory for Kemi Badenoch is an obvious, unprecedented and once inconceivable victory for racism. Of course, Dawn has since undone the repost and it is no longer on her profile on X. But how racist is that? So no sooner had I pointed out yesterday that black people are not a homogenous group who all think the same thing, and Kemi Badenoch's victory is a showcase for that, a load of people, mainly black, who want to reinforce a narrative of oppression emerged to remind me that we are victims. Although, if oppression means heading up the second biggest political party, or, in the case of David Lammy, holding one of the highest offices of the land, then I'll gladly take it. A while ago, whilst Shadow's Foreign Secretary, David ranted that he would take the responsibility of being the first Foreign Secretary descended from the slave trade incredibly seriously. He said that his Guyanese parents would not have believed their skinny son in NHS prescription glasses, who got stopped and searched on the streets of Tottenham, could end up reaching the Foreign Office. But all that proves is that had his ancestors not been brought here, he wouldn't even be in this country to hold such a high office. I mean, what would he be doing in Guyana? As perverse as it seems, he's got the slave trade to thank for being here in the first place. Nobody's saying the trade was a good thing, but it certainly doesn't appear to have harmed David's life chances. But in the case of Dawn Butler, you literally cannot win. Unless, of course, you play the victim. It's almost as though she enjoys it. Why wouldn't you want to be judged by the content of your character rather than the colour of your skin, and move towards a colourblind society where being a different colour is merely just a statement of fact, a description with no other assumptions? It seems those who dare step outside their lane are deemed blackface and playing along to their white supremacist masters. Well, I'm sick to my back teeth of it. It's ridiculous. Africa is a continent full of mainly black people from different countries. Imagine if I were to expect all white people in Europe to think the same thing. Whilst the majority of black people are wonderful, sadly, the most racism I have personally encountered these days is from black people. I'm often called a coconut or an Oreo, as if there is only one way to be black, and it's theirs. Otherwise, my words cannot be my words, and someone is pulling my strings and writing the script. Rather than celebrate just how non-racist the UK is, the likes of Dawn Butler are, in my view, desperately trying to cling on to the past. So to be clear, Dawn, I wrote this all by myself. No white puppet master is pulling my strings. I choose to use my platform to promote unity rather than division. I don't even think she can see it. Nobody is denying racism exists, but sadly, it comes from people like you, Dawn. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it. Of course, GB News has contacted Dawn Butler's office, but we are yet to receive a response. But before we get stuck into the debates, here is what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, can Kemi Badenoch win over Reform voters? Reform UK have wasted no time at all digging out newly appointed Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch, claiming that her track record in government showcases a full record of failure. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, can Kemi Badenoch win over Reform voters? And in Worldview, I'll be crossing live to Tel Aviv to speak to Mystifier and performer Uri Geller to get the latest on the ground in Israel. All of that coming up. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. But let's stick with the topic of Dawn Butler. Let's get the thoughts from Labour MP Sion Smith Simon. Have I said that right? Sean, I knew that, Sean. But I've exhausted myself in my rant. Sean.
It was a great rant. I enjoyed it.
You enjoyed it. You see, the thing is, I'm struggling to find people who are supporting any of the activity that Dawn Butler has just initiated. Where do you stand with it?
So I think it was a rude and foolish thing for whoever wrote that tweet to have written. It was clearly wrong for Dawn to have retweeted it. Although she did delete it, she didn't write it in the first place. I think a bit of proportion, like. A lot of people retweet a lot of things all the time, and I think Dawn's one of them. I don't think it's okay to say that. I find it hard to imagine Dawn actually herself defending those words. I think more likely she just didn't read it very carefully, and it's the kind of thing. As you say, like there's there are different views about this, aren't there? You've just put your the way you see that as a black British woman very clearly. As you said, she's got a very different view, which she's also entitled to. She probably retweeted that thing thinking, oh, these people are, basically on my side of this argument, and didn't look at the detail. And so I don't think we need to persecute her for the tweet. But I think it's a...
the guy, the person who, and I'm not going to say his name because I'm not going to give him any publicity whatsoever, but he has done, said nasty things about me as well. I think one time there was a vat of cockroaches, and then he said that's Nana Akua sort of thing, and there was these cockroaches on the fire. Look, he is notorious. That's it's unacceptable. But this person is notorious for that kind of comment, and Dawn Butler, they're morphing into the same people, but Dawn Butler is no fool when it comes to this. She knows that this person is often tweeting stuff like that. She couldn't not possibly know. So it's absurd that she would say white supremacy in blackface. That's what she said. Do you think it's acceptable for our political leaders to be speaking like this? And do you think perhaps they should be looking at removing the whip for this? Because it's racism.
I mean, as I say, she didn't actually say that herself. She deleted it pretty quickly. She hasn't in any way defended it. I think it's, in all those circumstances, I think it's reasonable to say, OK, she's recognised that was a mistake and move on from it. It's not as though she stood behind it.
Well, she's notorious for this, though, isn't she? I mean, even the clip that
she's clearly got a very different view to you. And I thought, you put your perspective on it, like clearly and very well, very, very persuasive. But as you acknowledge in the way that you talk about it, now there is another perspective of black British people who see it differently. Surely the point that I agree with you about is that both sides of that argument should be having a debate in a civilised and decent way, and shouldn't be resorting to abuse and name calling like that. And Dawn shouldn't be retweeting it. We used to be mates, me and Dawn, a long time ago when we went into Parliament at the same time, and we've lost touch in recent years. But Dawn's not a bad person. I don't think she's a bad person.
Well, I'm going to judge her on the content of her character, and from what I can see, she doesn't seem to me a very nice person at all. Sean Simon, thank you very much for joining me. Much appreciate your perspective. Let's cross over live to Donald Trump, who is speaking at a campaign event in Pennsylvania.
And the media is so damn bad, it's unbelievable. Every inch of it. Every problem facing us can be solved, but the fate of our nation is in your hands. On Tuesday, you have to stand up and you have to go. You got to just go out and you got to stand up. We've done this for so long. This is 9 years. We have to get out. But you have to tell that horrible, terrible, the worst ever vice president. Nobody knows where the other guy is. Where the hell is he? Where the hell did he go, David? Where is he? Nobody knows where is Biden? Remember? We used to go, where's Hunter? We used to go, where's Hunter? Now we go, where the hell is Biden? Where's Joe? You know, when you think they stole the election. It was just, they walked in, they said, you're out. Right? That's a threat to democracy. They call me threat to democracy. They stole the election from this guy. Whether you like him or not, they stole the election. They walked in, they said, get out of here, Joe, you're out. You're dead, you're out, Joe. And man, oh man, he likes me better than he likes her, I really believe. And you have to tell Kamala that you've had enough, Kamala. You've had enough. You're the worst ever. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. Get out of here. You know, it's amazing. I watched her yesterday, and she's saying all these things she's going to do when she gets to office. First of all, she's got 3 more months. But more importantly, why the hell didn't she do this stuff before? First of all, none of it did she believe in. None of it. She's changed 15 different policies. She's a radical left Marxist. And if she ever heads this country is finished. And I say it loud and clear. Everything we've been fighting for so hard to achieve for the past 9 years all comes down to the next 2 days. Think of it. We've worked in this for 9 years, and we got a phony press. We got a lot of crooked people out there. We're fighting like a son of a gun. We're fighting. They are fighting so hard to steal this damn thing. Look at what's going on. Look at what's going on in your state. Every day, they're talking about extending hours and stuff. Who ever heard of this stuff? We should have one-day voting and paper ballots. Then I just heard that a couple of states may go an extra 12 days. How the hell do you have an election? You know, they spend all of this money on these damn machines, and paper ballots, you'd have the answer by 9 o'clock tonight. It's a damn shame, and I'm the only one that talks about it because everyone's afraid to damn talk about it. And then they accuse you of being a conspiracy theorist. He's a conspiracy, and they want to lock you up. They want to put you in jail. The ones that should be locked up are the ones that cheat on these horrible elections that we go through in our country. And I don't know what's going to happen, but for future elections, I won't be even a part of it. But you ought to damn well go to paper ballots. You ought to go to voter ID. And you ought to have the election over by 9 o'clock. I'm hearing now they're going to take weeks. Can you imagine? They spend all this money on machines, and they're going to say, we may take an extra 12 days to determine. And what do you think happens during that 12 days? What do you think happens? These elections have to be decided by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock on Tuesday night. Bunch of crooked people. These are crooked people. You know, in California, they just signed a bill that if you're an official or anybody, you're not even allowed to ask anybody for their voter ID. And if you do, you've created a criminal act or something. I mean, they only do that because they want to cheat. What the hell are they doing? The whole world is laughing at us. They're laughing at us. You know what? And if nothing comes out of this whole thing, it's going to teach you damn well better get a different system. And these bloodsuckers up there, they do nothing about it. What a shame. What a shame. That's why the world laughs at us. They all have elections. You know, France had crooked elections because they had paper ballots years ago, and they switched. And now they have paper ballots. And at 9 o'clock in the evening, they called the winner, they called the loser, everyone home, everybody was fine. They had voter ID, they had paper ballots, they had one-day election. At 9 o'clock, it was over. They called the winner. They called the loser. Everyone went home. Now they say, well, wait till the next time. We got to get smart as a country. This is just one thing. It's all corrupt. She's corrupt. She's a corrupt person. I'm running against a totally corrupt person. And I'm really not running against her. I'm running against a corrupt machine called the Democrat Party. It's totally a corrupt party. Guys like Adam Shifty Schiff, these are corrupt people. And to think he'll probably be a senator, can you believe it? Watermelon head. No, he's a watermelon head. He's got the smallest neck I've ever seen. I don't know how the hell he can hold up that enlarged watermelon head. What an ugly guy, both inside and out. But it's now or never. This is it. This is the moment. We've been waiting 9 years for this, and we got 2 days, and we got all this crap going on with the press and with the fake stuff and fake polls. And by the way, the polls are just as corrupt as some of the writers back there. They can make those polls sing. They can make them sing. They brag about it. I got a poll, I'm 10 points up in Iowa. One of my enemies just puts out a poll, I'm 3 down. Joni Ernst called me, everyone's called me. They said, you're killing in Iowa. The farmers love me and I love them. But they came up. They just announced a fake poll. Hey, think of it. Right before the election that I'm 3 points down. I'm not down in Iowa. I got $28 billion for the farmers. $28 billion. Nobody else would have gotten 10 cents. Joe would sleep. He would. Do you think he thinks about the farmers? And you know who gave me the $28 billion for the farmers? China, because China screwed our farmers. And then they tell me I'm down in Iowa. I don't think so. And you know what? A good poll, Emerson, no friend of mine, they said that poll is wrong. Everybody said, why do they announce a poll that's highly skewed toward Democrats and liberals? Why do they do that? When you read it, they interviewed far more Democrats than they did Republicans. Why did they do that? Why did they do that? And I guess there's a law that they have to say that because they would have preferred not having to say that. Our country is a crooked country, okay? It's a crooked country, and we're going to make it straight. We're going to make it straight, and it's not an easy thing to do. They'll want to put you in jail because you want to make it straight. Think of it. Think of it. They cheat on elections, and you call them on it, and they want to put you in jail. Think about it. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen, but I love it. You know why? Because we've proven something, we've shown something, and we're going to get it fixed, and we got to win this election. It's all up to now. I mean, we got 2 days. We've been working for 9 years. We did a great job. We had the best economy ever. We had the wall. We had everything. I built over 500 miles of wall. They don't even talk about the wall. But we had the best border, the safest border. I won't pull down my world's favorite chart because I don't want to waste a lot of your time. But my world's favorite chart, done by the Border Patrol, it said we had the safest border in the history of our country the day that I left. I shouldn't have left. I mean, honestly, because we did so well. We had such a great. So now, I mean, every polling booth has hundreds of lawyers standing there. It's all about the lawyers. Everybody's standing at lawyers. Nobody should have that. You should have a damn ballot and you hand it in. Do you know that in Arizona, where I'm winning by a lot, but it takes 4 hours to fill out the ballot. They've got page after page, and people are complaining they don't have time. It takes 4 hours to fill it out. Why is that? Why is that? I can tell you why. But so many places. Pennsylvania, I love Pennsylvania. I went to school here. I think the people are incredible. But they found, as I understand it, I mean, I don't know what's happened in the last day or so, but in Lancaster, they found 2,600 ballots, all done by the same hand. In other words, the same exact penmanship, the same hand, the same everything. It was all done by the same pen, the exact same pen. And then they go and they say, well, this is a conspiracy theorist. It's a terrible thing that's happened to our country. And the whole world watches it, even third world countries. I was telling A friend came last night.
That's Donald Trump speaking at a rally in, it's a campaign event in Pennsylvania. Was it talking about watermelon head? I thought he was actually most entertaining. Well, listen, joining me now to discuss this, political commentator Andy Williams, also former deputy leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. I'm going to start with you, Andy Williams. What do you make of what Trump is saying? And apologies for Trump's use of language there, because in the States, actually, that word is perfectly fine, but here, we're not really supposed to say that. But, yeah.
Well, it's classic Trump stream of consciousness, wasn't it? I mean, if he wasn't campaigning to be leader of the free world in 2 days' time, it would be funny. But it's not funny because he does have a very good chance of winning the election on Tuesday. I think it's pretty much a coin toss, and I think it would be a really, really bad thing for America and for the world if he wins the election. I think it's terrifying.
Why would it be terrifying? I mean, you've seen what Joe Biden did. You saw his withdrawal from Afghanistan and now world wars everywhere.
Yeah, well, obviously that did not go well. I think there are many, many, many reasons why Donald Trump would be a terrible president of the United States. Firstly, because he didn't respect the outcome of the last election, which he lost. He still claims he won it. So he's undermined democracy in the country that is supposed to be the home of democracy. If you are a woman who wants to have an abortion in many states in America, you can no longer do that because of Donald Trump. He will not back Ukraine, and therefore Russia will. Well, I don't think the alternative is to roll over and allow Vladimir Putin to steamroll his neighbours.
But you don't know that was what he'll do. Ben Habib.
So I've got a real issue with the Democrats, because the Democrats basically have an anti-British tendency, and Joe Biden had it in spades. I remember with the debate over the Northern Ireland Protocol, he kept talking about how Ireland's interests, the Republic of Ireland's interests had to be taken into account, when actually the United Kingdom is the US's best and strongest ally in the world. And we were kicked in the shins repeatedly. And I don't think we would have a border down the Irish Sea if it wasn't for Joe Biden and the Democrats. And they are more warmongering. I think if you look back over the last 20, 30 years, Bush obviously started the war in Iraq, but Obama, I mean, put ablaze the Middle East. He got the Nobel Peace Prize, which is absolutely beyond me. But, the Arab Spring was promoted by Obama. And I do think there is a more nuanced position on Ukraine. I do agree we've got to support Ukraine in its fight against Russia. But the approach taken by the West and the Democrats, and indeed, sadly, the United Kingdom, is one of we will do whatever Zelensky wants. And that is not a sensible, grown-up approach to geopolitics. What we need to understand is what are our aims in the West in Ukraine? How do we make sure we get those aims without creating a further problem down the line for ourselves? We were awful in Afghanistan. We chucked a whole load of money towards the Mujahideen. We armed the Mujahideen. We created the Taliban. And if we're not careful, we'll create another similar problem in Ukraine. So I think by default, I couldn't even begin to pick apart the rambling of Donald Trump.
Where would you start? Yeah.
I mean, it's like someone who's had a few beers, he's watching telly, and he just says whatever random...
I know, he doesn't even drink, can he?
But by default, as a British citizen, and knowing where our bread is best buttered, you've got to support Donald Trump.
I don't agree with that at all. I think, this government would have a very strong... I know they've been building, relationship with Trump and with people in the Trump administration. David Lammy has been on a charm offensive with J.D. Vance, so I think we'd be...
Well, after campaigning for the Democrats.
Well, no, but I mean, I really do think for America and for the West and for Britain and the world as a whole, I honestly think it's really important that Donald Trump does not win on Tuesday. And notice that I say Donald Trump does not win because I am not saying that Kamala Harris is a superb candidate. I think she's a very poor candidate, and there's a reason she wasn't picked for the nomination in the first place.
All right, well, listen, what are your thoughts? GBNews.com/you'll say. I will get to some of those very shortly, but you're with me. If you've just tuned in, welcome. This is GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, Worldview. We'll cross live to Tel Aviv to speak to the mystifier and performer Uri Geller and get the latest there. First, let's get your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. Well, Kemi Badenoch says she'll tell hard truths to both the country and her party as she began her first full day as Conservative leader. She's vowed to ensure a fresh start for the party ahead of announcing her shadow cabinet. She's also said Partygate was overblown and the government should not have fined people for everyday activities during lockdown. Kemi Badenoch won more than 53,000 votes in the contest, while rival Robert Jenrick received 41,000. Ms Badenoch is expected to name her shadow cabinet in the coming days ahead of their first meeting on Tuesday, with former contenders Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat, Mel Stride and Dame Priti Patel reportedly open to frontbench positions. Elsewhere, Labour MP Dawn Butler shared a social media post accusing Kemi Badenoch of representing white supremacy in blackface shortly before she was elected as the new Tory leader. The Brent East MP has since deleted the repost from her ex-profile. Neither Downing Street nor Dawn Butler have made any comments. Former Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng told Camilla Tominey there should be disciplinary action. Now, the fallout to Rachel Reeves's budget continues today as she explained the money raised through changes to inheritance tax to farmers will go back to public services. Speaking this morning, the Chancellor said that farmers as well rely on good public services, including the NHS and schools, adding the funds generated by these tax changes will also put public finances on a firm footing. And a joint investigation from both Channel 4 and The Sunday Times has revealed the full details of the property estates owned by King Charles and Prince William. The investigation shows the vast array of commercial property the royal family has built up from the time of medieval monarchs. Their contracts with public bodies are said to include a £37 million agreement with the Ministry of Justice and an £11.4 million deal with Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Trust. A spokesman for the Duchy of Cornwall said it was a private estate with a commercial imperative, while the Duchy of Lancaster said their business complies with all relevant UK legislation. It comes as Prince William travels to South Africa this week for his Earthshot Prize Award ceremony. The prize is hoped to recognise environmental solutions to repair the planet. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. We often refer to high pressure as our fair weather friends, but many of us may not be feeling particularly friendly towards the area of high pressure that we have at the moment because it is trapping a lot of cloud across much of the UK. And because high pressure is a blocking pattern, it can stay with us for a long period of time. The cloud is also going to be lingering with us for quite a while as well. If you do have any fireworks celebrations this evening, the cloud may bring the odd spot of drizzle in places, particularly around Irish Sea coastal districts. But underneath that cloud, temperatures will hold up, so many of us will be on the positive side of the temperature scale. But a patchy frost is possible across the far north of Scotland, where we do see some clearer spells around. As you start off the new working week then, do be prepared for a widespread amount of grey skies above you. Again, there will be the odd spot of drizzle to watch out for, particularly along this western side of things. Most of England and Wales managing to stay dry at least. For the start of Monday morning, the best of that brightness is once again going to be across northern areas of Scotland. As we do head throughout the rest of the day, though, there is the potential that we start to see a few more breaks developing at times, particularly for western parts of Northern Ireland, western Wales, parts of Cornwall, but also maybe in the far southeast of England, just seeing a bit of influence from this clearing skies over France and continental Europe. Temperatures tomorrow probably down by a degree or so compared to what we do see today. Most of us seeing the thermometer rise to around 11 to 13 degrees Celsius and feeling quite chilly where you are stuck underneath that widespread cloud. Into the evening, again, the cloud will be quite stagnant for most of us. Where we do start to see a few breaks developing, though, there is the potential that that allows for some fog developing overnight. So it could be quite misty and murky first thing on Tuesday morning for many of us. The cloud, as I've mentioned, is really going to be staying with us throughout much of the next few days, but it will be turning a little bit milder. Bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets And my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? You've missed a lot of the show, but it's fine because we're halfway through. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Don't forget as well, you can download the GB News app. It is completely free. Check out all the programmes. But as ever at GB News, we do love to hear what you think. And every day we run our poll of the day. And today I'm asking, can Kemi Badenoch reunite the Tories? Well, the results so far, 30% of you say yes, 57% of you say no, and 13% of you are unsure. I'll be bringing you the final result in the show very soon. But, as ever, check out gbnews.com/yoursay and /poll for the latest polls. But it is now time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, can Kemi Badenoch win over Reform voters? Reform UK have wasted no time at all digging out newly appointed Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch, her claims and her track record in government, which showcases a full record of failure, according to them, highlighting her past support for policies they view are detrimental from backing Theresa May's Brexit deal, which they claim would have committed us to the ECHR long-term, to other policies. So, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, can Kemi Badenoch win over Reform voters? Well, let's ask my panel, political commentator Andy Williams, also former deputy leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. Well, I've got to start with you first, Ben. Can she?
Well, I think, if I can put it like this, I didn't believe Robert Jenrick's Damaskene conversion to this uber-nationist, cropped-haired, ECHR ditching, boat-stopping, migration-reducing conversion. I didn't buy it.
Or
you like that?
Very good.
Or as Danny Finkelstein said, it's what Robert Jenrick was like, what happens when you put "how do I become Conservative Party leader" into ChatGPT?
Didn't work then.
No, it didn't. No.
But he would have been a much bigger challenge for Reform. And in a sense, I would have welcomed that challenge, because what it would have done is keep Reform absolutely honest to its agenda. It would have had to compete with Robert Jenrick, who, by the way, wouldn't be delivering any policies. He'd just be standing at the dispatch box saying all of these things. And that would be terrific for the discourse in Parliament, because you would have a genuine opposition saying all these things, and Nigel and Richard and people sitting in Parliament would have to be equally robust. And so you'd get that side of the agenda, which I really favour, getting maximum airtime. Now, Kemi has obviously pursued the reuniting of the Conservative Party, and I think in the pursuit of that reunification, she's been very shy, or she's held her cards very close to her chest. She hasn't revealed policy. She said she's not going to talk about policy. She's talking about principles. Now we will see the real Kemi. Now we're going to find out over the next few months what her discourse is like at the dispatch box, and who she appoints to her shadow cabinet. I know this morning on Camilla Tominey, a Conservative commentator, said that Robert Jenrick would probably turn down a role in her shadow cabinet.
Oh, why?
Yeah,
no,
that would be a shame.
No, he shouldn't.
You know, I think she should invite Robert Jenrick.
Take a role in there.
Absolutely.
He's needed. He's needed.
Absolutely.
A great politician.
We need that.
Yes.
We need that message. So take him in as Home Office, Secretary of State for Home. Have Priti Patel in.
Or whatever job he really wants, and if she...
Well, he's been strong on the ECHR, so give him that mandate.
Absolutely, then she can take take it all off her shoulders and leave it to him.
And let him get on with it. Yeah. And I would like to see Suella in the shadow cabinet. And Priti Patel. And if she can get a few more... No, Andy won't like it.
This just sounds like a nightmare shadow cabinet.
No, but you...
Genrick, Braverman, Patel, are we serious?
Well, they're conservatives,
but this is proper conservatism. With which you may disagree, of course.
Of course. I mean, I don't think Robert Jenrick is a great politician, with all due respect. I think he's a pretty average politician, and I think he would have been a very bad choice as Conservative Party leader, because he is basically a Nigel Reform tribute act, and we all know that nobody can do what Nigel Farage does better than Nigel Farage.
But Andy, he was saying things that even Nigel isn't prepared to say. He was saying things like, we will mass deport everyone in this country that's been here illegally. And that really resonates. Let me tell you, I support that view. Anyone in this country who's entered the country illegally should be deported.
I don't support that view, but I think if we're talking about Kemi Badenoch for a second, I don't think we're asking the right question in terms of will she win over Reform voters. It's will she win over people in the centre, in the centre ground? Because that is, we all know that that's where elections are.
With you.
We all know that
I really disagree.
We all know that that's where elections are won. And will she win over people in the centre? And my prediction is no, she won't. I think the Conservative Party is in an absolute mess. I think this was a terrible choice in terms of a final two of Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick. If that's the best they can do, they're in way more trouble than they realise. I think there seems to be a feeling that because Labour have had a rocky start, everybody's going to switch straight back to the Tories. And I really, really do not underestimate the level of anger and actually hatred in some quarters for the Tories, and I don't think Kemi Badenoch is going to change that.
Well, the poll after Rishi Sunak gave his incredible speech...
He was very good the other day.
From Rachel Reeves' disastrous budget.
Shame he didn't make any of those speeches as Prime Minister.
Well, the thing is, though, now the Tories are ahead just by 1 point, but they are now still ahead for the first time.
Yeah, by 1 point in one poll, and that is significant.
So that is significant.
That is significant. Yeah. But now the public know who the Conservative Party leader is, and they will start to see Kemi Badenoch for who she is. And I don't think they'll like what they see, either in terms of policy or in terms of the way she conducts herself.
Have I got time to say one thing about Andy?
After this, right, because this show's nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our Great British Voice, their opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. David Balme, he's live in Watford. David, welcome. David, do you think Kemi Badenoch has the ability to win over Reform voters?
I think at the moment it's up in the air because, as has been said, we don't know what she's going to be like. How she will handle herself again in question time, because having heard her on Parliament TV, I think she'd be okay discuss it. And if she can then come up with policies that the average Reform voter who switched from the Conservatives wants to hear, then yes, she can actually do a very good job. It all depends what happens over the next 100 days, as they always say. Ask again after Christmas, what's she been like? Has she been knocking chunks out of Keir Starmer? And if it's led to be true that Rishi Sunak and Oliver Dowden are going to stand down, then it's going to be interesting to see what are the results of the by-elections. Because if they hold their votes or increase them, then she's going to be carried through on a wave of popularity. If they lose those percentages, then she's going to be fighting a losing battle.
All right, well, very, very quickly, though, and just say yes or no, do you think that Robert Jenrick would have made a better leader than Kemi Badenoch?
No.
You wouldn't? All right. David Balme, thank you very much there in Watford. Quickly, Ben Habib, what is it you want to say?
Well, I just wanted to say I don't think the next election will be won by winning the middle ground. What we saw in the last general election was over 4 million people that had voted in 2019, presumably for Boris Johnson, didn't vote this time round. Labour won their massive landslide on fewer votes than they got in 2019.
They won because the Conservatives behaved in a manner which nobody could support, frankly. But if you've just joined us, welcome. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Next, Worldview. I'll cross live to Tel Aviv and speak to Mr. Fire and performer Uri Geller to get the latest in Israel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
3 incredible young people from Essex are planning to become the youngest people ever to row, not sail, row, across the Atlantic Ocean.
It's about for 3,000 miles.
It is.
Give or take.
Almost exactly that, Sam.
The 3 flying fish, so-called, consists of Anna, Dunk, Harry, Alan and Rowan Daly, who are preparing to row that 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. It would be the second largest ocean in the world. And the trio are aiming to do that challenge in support of the Teenage Cancer Trust.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that Anna and Harry from the Flying Fish join us now. Very good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
I think the 2 of you are bonkers, but brilliant. Absolutely incredible what you're doing to raise money for Teenage Cancer Trust. Why did you want to do this?
So our third person, Rowan, his friend actually died. So when he was in secondary school, I believe, one of his peers passed away, and Teenage Cancer Trust supported them and their family a lot. So it was definitely the right charity. Yeah, it was.
Absolutely awful. So you wanted to do something to raise money for teenage cancer. Why rowing?
So my dad did it in 2021.
The trip, the Atlantic trip?
Yeah, he rowed it as a pair. Where we live in Essex, they actually build the boats there. So we used to cycle round there past the boatyard, and he got interested and actually did it. He was the first year after COVID. And one night, we all met in the Air Cadets, so one night after Air Cadets, Rowan actually dropped me off home and the boat was outside. We were obviously waiting to get it sold. And I think he was asking some questions, and we stood there at my porch and went, Rowan said, I reckon we could do that. And I was like, yeah, I reckon we could. And then we brought Harry on board, and that's kind of how it all came together.
If people are watching and they want to support you, do you have a
Yeah, we've got
GoFundMe page
social
yet?
media platforms at the Free Flying Fish. That's Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, and our GoFundMe links in all of the bios on there.
Fantastic.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 49 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Right, let's cross over to Tel Aviv and speak to Uri Geller. Uri, welcome to the show. Uri, what's on your mind? Lovely to see you.
Thank you, Nana. Look, I'd like to voice my opinion about America. Look, Nana, we are now just 2 days away from the most important election of our lifetime. I've got to talk about this because the future of the Middle East and, in fact, the whole world depends on it. Now, what I've got to say is very controversial, and some of your viewers will not agree with me, but that's okay. Look, Nana, all my psychic senses are literally yelling out warning against a win by Kamala Harris. Do not be fooled by the fact that she smiles and she laughs and that she's the first female candidate. None of that means anything if she gets into power. Look, Nana, in the 2 months since she was nominated, we have heard nothing, nothing from her about any policies. And you know why? Because she has not got any. Kamala Harris hasn't done a single press conference where she's been asked unscripted questions. She is 100% fake. I'll say it again, she's fake. She shows zero interest in anything to do with foreign affairs or anything to do with the economy. But there are some clues to what she thinks. And it is dangerous, Nana, dangerous. How can we have a president who thinks Israel might be committing genocide in Gaza? This is an outrageous lie about Israel. But Kamala Harris said the suggestion was a real one. This was in Milwaukee on October the 19th. She said it. Look it up if you doubt it. Let me show you the picture. That's Kamala Harris. Look, Nana, Kamala Harris ran 2 contradictory campaign ads. One to Arab American voters, where she said she will not be silent about Gaza's suffering, and one to American Jewish voters, where she said she will always stand up for Israel. Now look, Nana, how can this woman be president? How can she work with any Israeli government? But you know what? Even if she does become president, she's just a puppet. The real power will be with Barack Hussein Obama, because his appointees are still running the White House. This is not a conspiracy theory, Nana. This is a fact. And Barack Hussein Obama did nothing to advance the cause of peace in the Middle East or anywhere else. Let me finish with this, Nana. Kamala Harris is an empty suit, and at least half, unfortunately, half of the US is going to vote for that. Nana, I always finish with something positive. Love to you all from the Holy Land in Israel. Come and visit us.
Oh,
see you
definitely.
next week.
Thank you, Uri. Thank you so much. That is Uri Geller. Those are his thoughts on the US election. Thank you so much to Uri Geller. Well, lots of you have been getting in touch with your views and your thoughts. Let's have a look at what you've been saying. Joseph says the Conservatives will not deal with illegal immigration. This is the biggest threat to our country and must be dealt with. Andy says the Labour Party is now a party that is potentially racist by association. He's referring, in a sense, to Dawn Butler, but they may do something about that, so I wouldn't really give them that title. Francis says that Trump must win, and then Richard says we've seen what Kemi is like. She sits on the fence and has no philosophy or policies of her own. I don't think she sits on the fence, dude. I don't think you've been watching the same Kemi that I've been watching. Keep them coming. gbnews.com/your say. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. Plenty more coming up in the next hour. Loads more, including whether you think that Dawn Butler should lose the Labour whip. Keep those comments coming. Greg Svensson will be here soon to discuss all that is the US election. Don't go anywhere.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. We often refer to high pressure as our fair weather friends, but many of us may not be feeling particularly friendly towards the area of high pressure that we have at the moment, because it is trapping a lot of cloud across much of the UK. And because high pressure is a blocking pattern, it can stay with us for a long period of time. The cloud is also going to be lingering with us for quite a while as well. If you do have any fireworks celebrations this evening, the cloud may bring the odd spot of drizzle in places, particularly around Irish Sea coastal districts. But underneath that cloud, temperatures will hold up, so many of us will be on the positive side of the temperature scale. But a patchy frost is possible across the far north of Scotland, where we do see some clearer spells around. As you start off the new working week, then, do be prepared for a widespread amount of grey skies above you. Again, there will be the odd spot of drizzle to watch out for, particularly along this western side of things. Most of England and Wales managing to stay dry at least. For the start of Monday morning, the best of that brightness is once again going to be across northern areas of Scotland. As we do head throughout the rest of the day, though, there is the potential that we start to see a few more breaks developing at times, particularly for western parts of Northern Ireland, western Wales, parts of Cornwall, but also maybe in the far southeast of England, just seeing a bit of influence from this clearing skies over France and continental Europe. Temperatures tomorrow probably down by a degree or so compared to what we do see today. Most of us seeing the thermometer rise to around 11 to 13 degrees Celsius and feeling quite chilly where you are, stuck underneath that widespread cloud. Into the evening, again, the cloud will be quite stagnant for most of us. Where we do start to see a few breaks developing, though, there is the potential that that allows for some fog developing overnight. So it could be quite misty and murky first thing on Tuesday morning for many of us. The cloud, as I've mentioned, is really going to be staying with us throughout much of the next few days, but it will be turning a little bit milder. Bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of your day.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed boiler repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you the chance to win everything you need to celebrate the festivities. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
On Tuesday night, stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, Tuesday night from 11.
Only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and he did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News, Britain's news channel. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it is yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next hour, former Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib, and also political commentator Andy Williams. Coming up, the Great British Debate, I'm asking, should Dawn Butler be stripped of the Labour whip? The post that she shared on X stated that Kimmy Badenoch represents white supremacy in blackface, an absolutely absurd thing to repost. So, of course, unless we agree with her way of thinking, we're supporting white supremacy. What do you think? I've got a poll up on X right now asking whether Dawn Butler should be stripped of the Labour whip. Please cast that vote. And with Trump and Harris neck and neck and the US election just 2 days away, Greg Sensen from Republicans Oversee UK will be in the studio to tell us who he thinks will make it into the White House. Before we get started, let's get your latest news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. Kemi Badenoch says she'll tell hard truths to both the country and her party as she began her first full day as Conservative leader. She's vowed to ensure a fresh start for the party ahead of announcing her shadow cabinet. She's also said Partygate was overblown and the government should not have fined people for everyday activities during lockdown. Kemi Badenoch won more than 53,000 votes in the contest, while her rival Robert Jenrick received 41,000. Ms Badenoch is expected to name her shadow cabinet in the coming days ahead of their meeting on Tuesday with former contenders Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat, Mel Stride and Dame Priti Patel reportedly open to front bench positions. Elsewhere, Labour MP Dawn Butler shared a social media post, as you've been hearing, accusing Kemi Badenoch of representing white supremacy in blackface shortly before she was elected as the new Tory leader. The Brent East MP has since deleted the repost from her X profile. Neither Downing Street nor Dawn Butler have made any comments. Former Conservative Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng told Camilla Tominey this morning there should be disciplinary action.
She's a race baiter. Why has she still got the whip?
Look, that's up to Labour.
But what do you think, genuinely?
I genuinely think that, given what she said, she should have the whip removed from her. There should be some discipline and some disciplinary measure against this kind of really hateful divisiveness.
I was reminded.
Rachel Reeves says the money raised through changes to inheritance tax to farmers will go back to public services. The Chancellor says farmers also rely on good public services, including the NHS and schools, adding the funds generated by these tax changes will also put public finances on a firm footing. When challenged by Camilla Tominey on the inheritance tax changes, Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury James Murray said the existing features of the inheritance tax system will still apply.
This means in practice is that in most cases, if you have a couple who are passing on a farm to the next generation, they will get £2 or £3 million, which is not subject to inheritance tax. So above that £2 or £3 million, so paying no inheritance tax on that first £2 or £3 million, above that, the rate will be half what it is for everyone else.
A joint investigation from both Channel 4 and The Sunday Times has revealed the full details of the property estates owned by King Charles and Prince William. The investigation shows the vast array of commercial property the royal families built up from the time of medieval monarchs. Their contracts with public bodies are said to include a £37 million agreement with the Ministry of Justice and an £11.4 million deal with Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Trust. A spokesman for the Duchy of Cornwall said it was a private estate with a commercial imperative, while the Duchy of Lancaster said their business complies with all relevant UK legislation. And it comes as Prince William travels to South Africa this week for his Earthshot Prize award ceremony. The prize is hoped to recognise environmental solutions to repair the planet. Elsewhere, a man has died and 6 people have been injured after a late-night car crash in Cornwall. An 18-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving and death by careless driving while unfit through drink or drugs. He's been released on bail pending further inquiries. Emergency services were called to reports of a collision between St Tudy and St Breward late on Friday evening. A 19-year-old man, a front seat passenger in one of the cars, died at the scene. The 6 people taken to hospital are thought to have minor injuries. And finally, protests have erupted in Valencia as King Felipe visited areas affected by recent flash flooding. Residents shouted murderers when the King and Queen arrived in the area, and mud was also thrown towards the monarch. Earlier, the royal couple was seen shaking hands and meeting the public before joining a briefing held on site by emergency response teams. The deadliest flash floods in Spain's modern history have killed at least 214 people. Dozens are still unaccounted for 4 days after torrential rains swept the eastern region of Valencia. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
Good afternoon. It is fast approaching 6 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio still to come. Should Dawn Butler be stripped of the Labour whip? The post that she shared on X stated that Kemi Badenoch represents white supremacy in blackface. An absolutely ridiculous thing to repost. What a stupid woman. Sorry. I'm sorry, but it's racist, it's wrong. You know, Dawn, I'm sorry, but Dawn, but I don't know why you thought that was acceptable. Because basically, unless we all agree with her way of thinking, we are supporting white supremacy. What do you think about that? Poll up right now on X asking whether Dawn Butler should be stripped of the Labour whip. Cast your vote now. Well, in the interview as well, on the way, with Trump and Harris neck and neck, and the US election just 2 days away, Greg Stenson from Republicans Oversee UK will be live in the studio to tell us who he thinks will make it into the White House. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. So there are growing calls for Labour MP Dawn Butler to have the Labour whip removed by Sir Keir Starmer after she shared a post on X labelling Kemi Badenoch as representing white supremacy in blackface. It's just absurd, I'm sorry. With the thread also endorsing a win for Kemi Badenoch as a victory for racism. I'm not sure how she's worked that out. She has, of course, undone the repost, but this hasn't stopped anger over her actions, including from former Conservative Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng, who spoke to Camilla Tominey on GB News earlier today.
I genuinely think that, given what she said, she should have the whip removed from her. There should be some discipline and some discipline.
Well, joining me now to discuss this is political commentator Andy Williams and former Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. I'm going to start with you, Andy Williams. We did talk about this earlier, but there can be no justification, really, for this, can there?
No, I completely agree. A really, really stupid thing to do, a thoughtless thing to do. If you're posting on Twitter, you need to realise that that is going out to tens, hundreds of thousands of people, and yeah, there's absolutely no justification for it. I think it undermines the more sensible people in the Labour Party, and it undermines any arguments that people might have about Kemi Badenoch. As you know, I have issues with some of the things she's said in the past and with some of her well, she doesn't have any policies yet, but I can imagine what some of them might be. But let's look at the substance rather than her as an individual and, you know, ad hominem attacks.
Well, I mean, the substance of what went on there, it was unacceptable. Ben Habib.
Well, I thought you said it brilliantly. If you needed two words to sum it up, the way you summed it up is a stupid woman. I mean, it was a stupid thing to say. And as I said in the earlier segment, I think it's basically conceding the argument that identity politics doesn't work. Kemi challenges the idea of this black victimhood, ethnic minority victimhood. Kemi challenges progressive discrimination. Kemi challenges the whole diversity, equity and inclusion agenda. And because Dawn Butler is wed to that agenda, she can't tolerate a person coming from her own, as she sees it, her own ethnicity, challenging the agenda. And instead of having the debate with Kemi, she sought to shut the debate down by essentially saying Kemi is an invalid human being because she actually isn't black. She's actually a white supremacist, which, as I started by saying, and you said so brilliantly, is utterly stupid. And someone like that shouldn't just have the whip suspended. She should have the whip removed, and there should be a by-election in her constituency. She's mad.
Well, I can't really understand why. I mean, if I was to be retweeting stuff like that, I don't think my employers at GB News would be very happy with that.
No, rightly so.
They would not be happy with that, and I, frankly, wouldn't do that because I'm not stupid. I don't understand it. And, you know, and apologies to Dawn, but you have to acknowledge that what you did there was ridiculous.
I hope and I think she will be forced into making an apology. I think she will have the whip suspended, and I actually think Keir Starmer should do that to send a message that this is. It doesn't matter whether you're if you're a Labour MP, a Conservative MP, a Reform MP, a Green MP, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's wrong, and she should have the whip removed.
Well, it's racist, and actually the guy who sends out these sort of posts, and I've been the victim of many of his posts, but one in particular where I was, he labelled me a cockroach, and then the cockroaches were in a vat, and then he was cooking, not him, but you couldn't see his face, but the vat were then on a gas stove, and they were all going, I mean...
Well, it's all a bit bonkers, isn't it?
This person who deals with these sort of comments that she reposted is notorious for that kind of behaviour.
Yeah, not good.
No, it's not good at all. So, yeah, look, I don't know. I think Keir Starmer needs to act quickly. He hasn't said much, has he, or anything? about this?
Well, has he? I don't think he said anything yet, no. But I'd be pretty confident that between now and tomorrow morning, he's going to intervene.
He would have found his conscience by tomorrow morning.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure there's some meeting. He's probably going, oh, for goodness sake, it's Sunday evening, and here I am in Downing Street having to have meetings about Dawn Butler. I mean, as I said earlier, there's a reason why Dawn Butler is not a government minister. You know, she's not actually considered to be, in Labour Party circles, a particularly brilliant or eminent or capable person.
Well, that's a relief. It's a low bar, of course. Really.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then he should deal with her as he should do, which should be to suspend her from the party for good, because it's not acceptable. I mean, Diane Abbott did something quite silly as well, didn't she? And she was suspended properly. She's come back now, but it took a while. So I think at this moment...
Well, actually, one of the privileges of having a huge majority like Labour have at the moment is that you actually can get rid of these bad apples. You know, you're not under pressure to maintain a razor-thin majority, so there's actually no real damage done if they do.
Well, there's a few of them that he needs to get rid of then, because he also has yet to deal with Jazz
Probably
Athwell.
about 399.
But one of them in particular, who I've been wondering why nothing's happened to Jazz Athwell, who's a dodgy Labour landlord, the biggest landlord in the Commons, with up to 15 properties, who had a licensing scheme before he was an MP, and he was the head of the council, and it was down to him to make sure that people pay this licence for their properties as landlords, and half of his properties were not covered. At least 7 properties did not have the licence on them.
Yeah.
And his properties were mould infested.
Multiple occupancy, yeah.
I mean, I'm afraid Jazz Athwell is exactly the sort of person who we don't want to be an MP, to be frank.
Or the chap in Amesbury who... What was his name?
Well, he's currently under investigation, so we'll leave that there.
We can't talk about that.
Not really,
okay.
but what he did, you saw on camera, so, you know... So there's a few of them that he'll lose, but if you keep losing them at that rate, then they'll literally be, well, you'll lose the majority quite swiftly.
I mean, I think there is a wider discussion to be had about the calibre of our politicians in general. You know, maybe it just feels like this, but it does feel that the calibre of politicians in this country is getting worse, not better.
Andy, you're absolutely right.
Know, and we need to do something. I don't know what it is, but we need to do something to arrest the slide, because, I mean, I was saying to Ben, the idea of going into politics for me is absolutely horrifying. I'm sure lots of other people think the same. So maybe it's about the environment. Is it about the pay?
What do you mean, 90-something thousand pounds? That's a lot of money for most people.
Well, it is a lot of money for most people.
And they also get second home allowances and all the other stuff. The full salary for the basic salary is nearer £120,000, really.
I accept that is a lot of money for lots of people.
For most people.
I absolutely accept that. But let's be frank, if we want to attract the absolute top talent from, you know, and say, OK, you could go and be a CEO in the private sector or be a member of Parliament, actually, that is not a competitive
But there wouldn't be... But what you're saying is the top talent, and then you've got people like Dawn Butler. So I think we need to be honest...
But that's exactly my point.
No. But you're saying that, you know, that won't attract people who... because of the money. But that's not true, because if you look at things like, for example, healthcare and nurses and people who do those things, some of those people are the top talent.
Of course, and it's a vocation. I accept that.
Yeah, but they're not being paid 90-something thousand pounds. They're doing it for the love of... And I think, actually, if we paid them nearer that, stuck with that price, we'd get people who have a vocation for something, who aren't doing it for the money. And that's why Rishi Sunak was good in that respect, because he didn't need the money. He was clearly passionate about leading the country. That's what I think.
Well, I don't know about Rishi Sunak.
Well, he's not now, because he made a mess of it.
Yeah, he made a mess of it. But undoubtedly, the calibre of MP is lower than it was 30 or 40 years ago. Oh. And the parties have a lot to answer for, because they obviously choose the candidates. And I think the Conservative Party, of which I know more than I do of the Labour Party, has been absolutely atrocious on candidate selection. It has chosen candidates that are uniform with its increasingly liberal attitude to governance. And so you've got a self-reinforcing liberalism in the Conservative Party, which is why it looks so close to the Liberal Democrats, rather than the traditional Conservative principles that, you know, there are lots of small C Conservatives in the country, including on the Labour, you know, people who've traditionally voted Labour. And they now look at the Conservative Party, will think you're a shade of the Liberal Democrats. And it's all about candidate selection. And we don't want people who come through the party political machine to become MPs. We want people who've had a real life.
Well, let me read some of these messages that are coming in. Andy, your namesake, Andy M says, tell the Labour chap, there's Andy, same name as you, by the way. Tell the Labour chap, Lord Ali makes up for Starmer's small salary. He certainly does. He kind of does, doesn't he? And then Grumpy Grandad says Starmer knocks off at 5 p.m. Friday. Maybe he'll grace us with his presence on Monday and sort out this racism.
I think
he's probably watching GB News right now.
Well, he might well be.
I'm sure he is. I think that's really unfair, actually. I know exactly what that view is referring to and what Keir Starmer was saying.
Take Fridays off, yeah.
No, that's not what he said. What he was saying... No. What he was saying was that he... what he was saying was that he hoped he would be able to protect some time for his family.
Oh,
I think that's a very...
No, you've missed the word Friday.
He said 6 p.m. on a Friday.
Friday. Come on,
I know that.
Listen to you brushing around the edges to make it sound a bit softer.
No. His wife is Jewish. He brings up his children in the Jewish tradition.
Well, that's his wife. He's not. That's not the point. He is the Prime Minister. You chose to do the job, to go for the job. Now you have the job. That is the requirement of the job. Tough.
There is nobody seriously thinks that if a crisis emerges on a Friday, that Keir Starmer is not going to work full.
Well, he obviously thought he could tell us that.
No, he was making a point about trying to protect time for his family. I think that's a reasonable and decent thing to do.
No, he should close his mouth. He's got the job as the Prime Minister. He leads the country. It's 24/7. If you don't like it, step aside and give it to someone like Wes Streeting. Right, let's see. Who else is here? Lucia says that Dawn Butler's odd Black history poem, I Am the Chosen One, remember that?
That's really
If a white person wrote this sort of thing, she'd be carted off to prevent before she could say white supremacy. I mean, that was absurd.
I am the chosen one.
She did a whole thing about being the chosen one and then put some images of people who hadn't done very nice things but were black. It was just absurd.
Right.
And then Sylvie says that Butler and Abbott are cut from the same cloth in the sense that they are. I hear you. Francis Henry says, yes, Ben, we agreed, Dawn Butler is mad. I mean, I'm sure she'd argue that she's not, but I'm not sure how she would argue that after the comments that she made. But it's just coming up to 18 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News coming up, the interview, just 2 days ahead of the election. I will be speaking to the chair of Republicans Overseas, Greg Svensson. Stay with me.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The number of pubs may reach critically low levels.
Absolutely. So what we're seeing is a decline in the number of pubs in Britain, and it's fallen. This is an absolutely astonishing figure. So it's basically fallen 10% in a decade. So do our maths. It doesn't take very long for that to happen. So if that carries on, we'd have, get this, only 1,000 pubs by 2074. So the big question is, what will become extinct first? The bank branch on your high street or the pub on your street corner? And this is a kind of perfect storm for landlords and landladies of, the cost of labour. Remember when the energy prices were at the high, we just realised just how much energy it keeps to keep the lights on in the local boozer. Yeah. As well as, as the cost of the golden nectar itself. So, as they call it in Australia.
Well, talking about that, I was mentioning the other day to, was it my father-in-law? I said, when I first started going to the pub, I was 15,
Okay.
Half
a lemonade,
half a shandy. I was nearly 16, I got half a shandy. No, we used to have Monday Club where pints of Foster's was £1.50, and my father-in-law was saying, I went to London the other day, a pint was £8.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
And when you've got those kind of prices, why wouldn't you just go down the supermarket and get 16 tinnies for £5?
So you're going all Aussie now. Put the tinnies in the esky before you have the bar bit.
Good day, mate. Why not?
Alex,
I agree, actually. I think it's concerning. A lot of people look at the high streets and they're very concerned that it's looking quite glum, to be honest. Lots of things are closing. But the reality is it's because people are not buying from the high street. They're not going to the pub, People are just deciding, what they're going to do in their spare time. Are they really going to go to the pub, or are they going to potentially go to, David Lloyd or a Nuffield, join a gym membership? They're just looking at their expenses and just deciding, we're going to actually cut costs,
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's 21 minutes after 5 o'clock. If you just tuned in, welcome. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. Don't forget as well, you can stream everything live on YouTube and download the GB News app. But now it's time for the interview. And today I'm joined by the chair of Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Svensson. Now, of course, it is just 2 days before Kamala Harris and Donald Trump go head-to-head as Americans cast their vote in what people are describing as the most consequential election in recent history. Shock polling from a traditionally Republican state of Iowa has placed the Democrats ahead. My God. Right, joining me now, Chair of Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Svensson. Greg, my goodness, Iowa. Now, that is usually, isn't that traditionally Republican?
Republican state. And you know, we've had a few Iowa politicians join us here in London. It's very, very red. It wasn't necessarily 15 years ago. I think Obama won it in 2008. But there is no way that Iowa's going to flip. That poll was an outlier. It was up 3 points. But the same day, Emerson came out. Emerson, which is kind of a left-leaning poll, with Trump +9. So I don't buy the real outliers right now.
Some people are saying it's because the women voted earlier.
Sure.
And obviously a lot of people, there's a lot of opposition of the Roe v. Wade for Trump.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasonings that somebody came out with.
Well, might be. Women historically vote early. They do. They like mail-in voting. Men don't like to. They like to go to the, go to the polls.
It's not true, really, do they?
It really is. And right now, women voting is up 10%, early voting.
Okay.
And I'm surprised it's that low. I thought it'd be more. So, no, I think that was an outlier poll. I mean, Iowa has gone completely red. All of their statewide offices are Republican. Their entire congressional delegation is Republican. And so I don't...
You don't buy that?
Will the margins be tighter than maybe last time? Sure, because there will be some women that are voting just on that issue, especially single women. Trump and the Republicans always win married women. We win single men and we win married men. But we have a massive shortfall with single women. And we're trying to fix that, but I don't imagine it's going to happen on Tuesday.
So Kamala Harris, a lot of people say they don't know much about her. She's a bit of an unknown phenomena. She's currently the President of the United States, actually, at the moment. You wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
Where's Joe Biden gone? He's vanished.
So he has been pretty quiet. He finally came out of the basement on Tuesday and told a national audience that Republican or Trump supporters are garbage. So that was a good moment for us. That was actually, I'm glad he came out and actually did something and made a statement. So it was an own goal for the Harris campaign, that's for sure. But yeah, he's disappeared. He's obviously got cognitive issues. And so the party decided that he wasn't fit enough to run for president, but he's fit enough to be president for 6 more months. So now we're down to 3, thank goodness. But, I think Vice President Harris has done a decent job of trying to get her, get out there and have people get to know her, because really most people didn't see her doing very much.
I just can't take it seriously. I can't take the tone of her voice. Her voice is really irritating.
Yeah.
The laugh is even worse.
She's a failed candidate. I mean, it's lucky for Trump that he gets to run against her. I mean, it would have been better to have Biden as the opponent because he had the cognitive issues. But Kamala's a really bad candidate. She ran in 2020, remember, as this radical left-wing progressive candidate. She never polled over 2%. In South Carolina, which is very favorable for African-American candidates, she was polling number 7. I mean, she's just not good. And so her word salads, her cackling laugh, it's not been a great campaign. She started out great when she did the Happy Clappy Joy Tour, and that worked for 4 or 6 weeks. But she peaked in August. And her numbers, and then when she went really hard on the personal insults on Trump, it kind of backfired on her.
Well, hasn't she also gone backwards on the whole issue of the wall, where she was caught out by one of the anchors on which channel it was? What was that? Was it CBS? Where she was talking, and he asked her, basically, well, how come you sort of changed your mind about the wall, or do you agree with Trump about the wall now?
Yeah, I mean, she's trying to. No one believes her, and that's the other problem she faces. And she came clean on several occasions where she's, when asked, would you do anything differently if you did it again, or would you do anything differently than Biden? And she said no. And so she knows that's a difficult position to be in, that she's tied to a failed administration. His policies and his outcomes have been disastrous for the country. That's why on the issues, Trump polls so much better than both Biden and Harris. So she's trying to now distance herself, and she can't do it because it's incoherent. It's not true, first of all, but she is probably more progressive than Biden. So it's a really delicate balancing.
And a lot of people blame her for San Francisco, the state of San Francisco, which would be the exact example of why she shouldn't run.
Exactly.
I visited San Francisco some 20-something years ago. It was a phenomenal place.
It's a great town.
It's phenomenal. Now,
yep.
What happened? What did she do to it?
She was very much behind the defund the police movement when she was not only attorney general but a senator. She was very, even though she was cruel at some points, like putting parents of truants, so if your child didn't go to school, let's put the parents in jail.
Right.
So she could be really cruel. She put away a lot of marijuana offenses that should have been, maybe a slap on the wrist or a short sentence. She put a lot of these guys away. So on one hand, she can be really cruel. The best Trump ad I've seen is just a clip from her bragging about being cruel.
Really?
2008 or whatever. So, but she was part of the problem there, the liberal policies that have failed. So San Francisco is going through a real rough patch.
It's terrible.
With the defund the police movement, the so-called bail reform, the Soros-backed DAs. So she's very much attached to that. But then if you just look at overall, Illinois, California, New York, all the states that have embraced these woke progressive left policies are losing people. They're moving out. They're hemorrhaging people. Tim Walz, the vice presidential nominee, is the governor of Minnesota. 45,000 people have left since he became governor from 2021 to 24. That's because of Tim Walz. I mean, his policies are driving people away. So it's a testament to the fact that the progressive left policies that she and Tim Walz advocate are failing. Why else would people be moving to red states?
They don't work. And what about Donald Trump? Let's talk about Trump now. We played a little bit of a clip from him at a rally. He was saying that someone had a watermelon head and they couldn't work out why the person's neck's so small, how it can carry such a large head.
Unfortunately for President Trump, he can't help
entertaining.
himself. I don't think it helps the cause.
Oh, it's entertaining. It does.
Well, that's the thing. It's great for the base. And he's saying what people think, right? I would say the same thing about him, if I was with my friends at the pub. But Trump tends to do it. At times, I wish he wouldn't. I wish he'd dial it down, focus on the issues that he wins on.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But he is funny. And everybody thinks that Adam Schiff is a complete and utter dweeb. So, good for him for calling it out. But I think there's probably better use of his time and energy than to be picking on Adam Schiff. He has legitimate issues with Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff lied to the American people and to the Congress, saying that he had evidence that Trump colluded with the Russians, and he knew that it was a fabrication by the Hillary Clinton campaign. And he still went ahead with it. So, look, I don't blame Trump for disliking Adam Schiff, but he should probably stick to the issues, and he wins on the issues.
Well, he would easily, especially on the wall, immigration and all those things, because the Democrats have completely failed.
Absolutely. The 1 and 2 issues in America are inflation and the economy, which the Democrats, Biden and Harris, caused, and then the border crisis, which not only did they cause, but they did it on purpose. They wanted 10 million illegal migrants coming into the country. It's outrageous that they did not enforce the law of the United States, which was passed by Congress, that the administration must detain migrants and return them. So it's really outrageous what they did, and that's one of the reasons that if Trump wins, that's one of the big reasons.
All right, and if you could call it, we're running out of time now.
I'll call it super close, according to the polls anyway. So Trump will win if he outperforms the polls like he did in 16 and 20, because right now he's tied and up slightly. So it really favors Trump.
All right. Well, listen, Greg, so
Good to be here.
Really good to talk to you. Thank you very much. Fascinating stuff. Where will you be watching the presidential election, or will you be sleeping and just wake up and find out what the result is? Although the result doesn't come out straight away, it takes days. I don't know why that is. But you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, we will continue with our great British debate this hour. And I'm asking Trump versus Kamala, who gets your vote? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Ben Habib and Andy Williams. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much. The top stories. Kemi Badenoch says she'll tell hard truths to both the country and her party as she began her first full day as Conservative leader. She's vowed to ensure a fresh start for the party ahead of announcing her shadow cabinet. She's also said Partygate was overblown and the government should not have fined people for everyday activities during lockdown. Kemi Badenoch won more than 53,000 votes in the contest, while her rival Robert Jenrick received 41,000. Ms Badenoch is expected to name her shadow cabinet in the coming days ahead of their first meeting on Tuesday with former contenders Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat, Mel Stride and Dame Priti Patel reportedly open to front bench positions. Elsewhere, Labour MP Dawn Butler shared a social media post accusing Kemi Badenoch of representing white supremacy in blackface shortly before she was elected as the new Tory leader. The Brent East MP has since deleted the post from her X account. Neither Downing Street nor Dawn Butler have made any comments. The Chancellor says the money raised through changes to inheritance tax to farmers will go back to public services. Rachel Reeves says farmers also rely on good public services, including the NHS and schools, adding the funds generated by these tax changes will also put public finances on a firm footing. A joint investigation from both Channel 4 and the Sunday Times has revealed the full details of the property estates owned by the King and Prince William. The investigation shows the vast array of commercial property the royal families built up from the time of medieval monarchs. Their contracts with public bodies are said to include a £37 million agreement with the Ministry of Justice and an £11.4 million deal with Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Trust. A spokesman for the Duchy of Cornwall said it was a private estate with a commercial imperative, while the Duchy of Lancaster said their business complies with all relevant UK legislation. Well, that comes as Prince William travels to South Africa this week for his Earthshot Prize award ceremony. The prize is hoped to recognise environmental solutions to repair the planet. And now, civil rights campaigner Paul Stevenson, known for his prominent role in the Bristol bus boycott, has died at the age of 87. In a statement, his family said he died last night after a battle with Parkinson's disease and dementia. They described him as a passionate advocate for equality, tirelessly working to dismantle the barriers of discrimination. Mr Stevenson helped to rally thousands of people in Bristol in 1963 against the Bristol Omnibus Company's refusal to hire black or Asian drivers. Well, this contributed significantly to the creation of the first Race Relations Act in Parliament 2 years later. He was made an OBE for his services to equal opportunities in 2009 and was awarded honorary doctorates at 3 UK universities. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More news from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. We often refer to high pressure as our fair weather friends, but many of us may not be feeling particularly friendly towards the area of high pressure that we have at the moment because it is trapping a lot of cloud across much of the UK, and because high pressure is a blocking pattern, it can stay with us for a long period of time. The cloud is also going to be lingering with us for quite a while as well. If you do have any fireworks celebrations this evening, the cloud may bring the odd spot of drizzle in places, particularly around Irish Sea coastal districts. But underneath that cloud, temperatures will hold up, so many of us will be on the positive side of the temperature scale. But a patchy frost is possible across the far north of Scotland, where we do see some clearer spells around. As you start off the new working week then, do be prepared for a widespread amount of grey skies above you. Again, there will be the odd spot of drizzle to watch out for, particularly along this western side of things. Most of England and Wales managing to stay dry at least. For the start of Monday morning, the best of that brightness is once again going to be across northern areas of Scotland. As we do head throughout the rest of the day, though, there is the potential that we start to see a few more breaks developing at times, particularly for western parts of Northern Ireland, western Wales, parts of Cornwall, but also maybe in the far southeast of England, just seeing a bit of influence from this clearing skies over France and continental Europe. Temperatures tomorrow probably down by a degree or so compared to what we do see today. Most of us seeing the thermometer rise to around 11 to 13 degrees Celsius and feeling quite chilly where you are stuck underneath that widespread cloud. Into the evening, again, the cloud will be quite stagnant for most of us. Where we do start to see a few breaks developing, though, there is the potential that that allows for some fog developing overnight. So it could be quite misty and murky first thing on Tuesday morning for many of us. The cloud, as I've mentioned, is really going to be staying with us throughout much of the next few days, but it will be turning a little bit milder. Bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon. It's 37 minutes after 5 o'clock. Welcome to GB News. We are Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akua. Now, as ever at GB News, we love to hear what you think. And every day we run our poll of the day. Today, we're asking, can Kemi Badenoch reunite the Tories? The results are in. Yes, 30% of you say yes. No, 57% of you say. And unsure, 13%. For all our latest polls, go to gbnews.com/poll. But right now, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking Trump versus Kamala, who gets your vote? There are just days before the American election. A lot of people already casting their vote early, in particular women, in Iowa, which was apparently ahead in the polls where Kamala was leading. It is usually a Republican state, but for some odd reason, the polls suggested that the Democrats were ahead. But what do you think? Who would you vote for? National polls still show that the candidates are in a deadlock, but Harris is just edging in two of the major swing states as well. That's Michigan and Wisconsin. And polling also shows that, as I said earlier, she may be taking a shock lead in Iowa. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, who do you support? Trump or Kamala? Is it Kamala? Right now, they're joining me, Ben Habib and also Andy Williams. Ben Habib, who would you go for?
Well, for me, we've got to support Donald Trump because the Democrats are inherently anti-British. I'll never forgive Joe Biden for supporting Ireland in the Brexit debate over the Irish border, which we now have between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. I'll never forgive Barack Obama for saying the United Kingdom can get to the back of the queue.
I remember that.
In the event that, they vote to leave the EU and they want a trade deal. These are overtly hostile comments from Democrat presidents. You don't get that from Donald Trump. He loves the United Kingdom. And frankly, as a British citizen, the only thing I care about when it comes to the US is what is their foreign policy, because we're on the receiving end of that foreign policy. And Donald Trump will always be a better friend of the United Kingdom than a Democrat will be. And by the way, I don't buy the line that he's bad for NATO, he's bad for global security. Actually, last time he was president, NATO, American forces had a very strong presence in Europe. And frankly, the Europeans need to hold their head in shame because they can't, their national armies, their national militaries, can't get their act together. Even though we're a shadow of our former selves, we are the only significant military force in Europe. And I hope that sphere axis between the United States, Canada and the United Kingdom will go on being a very strong military axis, and that we will continue to cooperate in that way. And I think it's much more likely under Trump than it is under the Democrats.
Well, I mean, he did force them to stump up at least 2% of GDP.
He did.
So a lot of people trying to say, oh, he wants to abandon NATO. No, he didn't. What he was saying was that why should they pay, the Americans pay for everything, and then come and defend everybody who are not meeting their requirement of 2%. But your friend, Andy Williams, Susie Stride, who was on yesterday, she did a cracking job. She went on one of these campaign trails to help the... she was one of those Labour people that went off to support the Democrats. She went to America.
Good on her.
But can you not hear what... I've forgotten your name now. Who is he? What Ben Habib is saying, that it is clear that Trump has much more love for the UK than the Democrats. So why would you go and transport
I'm afraid I don't agree with that. I do agree with both of your points about the, he did a good thing by forcing Europe and the UK to up their game on defence spending, but I don't agree that he'd be a better friend of the... Donald Trump only cares about one thing, and that's himself. He doesn't care about the United States of America. He cares about himself.
But
he cares about big...
But that's subjective.
Donald Trump becoming...
No.
I think it's pretty clear. Come on, let's be serious.
No. Let's be serious. You're saying that he cares about himself. Everyone cares about themselves. I don't think that's a legitimate argument. I'm asking.
Okay, well, let's look at the substance.
Thank you.
Fine. We'll look at the substance. Donald Trump is a convicted criminal multiple times over. He tried to overturn the... he is. It's a fact. He tried to overturn the result of the 2020 election because he didn't like it. He still claims that he won that election and that it was stolen from him.
A lot of people think it was.
Well, it wasn't.
That's just what you're saying.
No, but I'm saying it because there is no evidence that he won the election.
Something very peculiar happened that night. I'm not going to go so far as to say that we have unequivocal evidence for election fraud. But I've watched many, many elections in my life, and you get to a point where the swing required to put the other
party... That's just to do with the order in which the results were announced.
Yeah, but it was extraordinary.
Mail-in votes.
It was extraordinary.
They were moving the goalposts as well at the time that people could end voting, and then this one did... And it was just a little bit odd. I mean, I don't know... I don't fully understand the American electoral system. I'm not going to pretend I do. But the way the goalposts kept shifting around, it did seem very odd. And then one of them, I think it was Georgia, then suddenly stopped counting, and it was like, well, why are you suddenly... It didn't...
But having said that, can I just say one other thing? I completely agree with you. One should concede the loss. Because not to concede the loss is to undermine the way our democracies work.
Exactly.
It all is about losers' consent.
I totally agree with that, and I'm afraid that it is, in a democracy, and America is often talked about as being the home of democracy, it is very important that if you lose, you accept defeat graciously.
Which is why I've got a real problem.
Did you accept the Democratic vote for Brexit?
No, that's the point.
Of course.
Man.
Well, I didn't like it at all.
But a lot of people...
I still think it was the wrong decision.
A lot of people
didn't, and that's challenged... I think we've had a political sort of tsunami since 2016 because our parliamentarians didn't concede, who are majority Remainers, wouldn't concede to the British people. And we've got this constitutional kind of crisis that we've had with so many prime ministers and an inability to get our act together, people not voting, I think all because of losers not accepting that they lost that Brexit.
And so we can agree that Donald Trump should have done that, and he shouldn't have then incited a riot on January the 6th, 2020. No, they're not. They're directly related.
No, I'm just saying that they're two different things, though, because you said we can all agree that. I don't actually agree that he incited a riot. I don't think that's quite true. I think he talked about it, then he actually told people to be peaceful and not do that, but they did it anyway. And also, you cannot hold him responsible for other people's actions.
What about women's reproductive rights in America? I think that's important.
Well, he can have his own opinion, and the polls.
Well, no, but the
polls will deal with that if they don't agree with them.
But that is actually a really surely, some questions should just be settled. And I'm sorry, I just don't think that abortion should be on the ballot paper in 2024.
Well, that's
and there are women in multiple states.
Well, that's what you think. You're entitled to think it, but so are they, and they can put that on there. If it means, let me finish. Sorry, if it means that they then lose the election as a result of it, then that's their own fault.
Yeah, and he might not. Let's see. But my personal view, is that a combination of being a career criminal, being... he is
They
being
made him one recently, didn't they?
Well,
and what about Joe Biden? Come on. And what about Joe Biden?
Well, Joe Biden's not on the ballot paper.
Yeah, but he...
For good reason.
But for a lot of the things that he did as well would have appeared to be, well, if he'd been challenged, would have probably been illegal. He probably would have also been arrested.
Well,
so there you go. Yeah, but he wasn't. But that's because it was, anyway, because he was in power. Right, coming up, Supplements Sunday, when my panel and I test some of the stories that caught our eye. Stay tuned.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
It seems that the younger generation's interest in literature is waning. Academics argue that educational policies have failed to encourage reading for pleasure, contributing to declining numbers of English literature students and a shift towards young adult books rather than classic novels. According to 2023 figures from the National Literacy Trust, the number of 8 to 18-year-olds who say they enjoy reading has sunk to its lowest level for almost 20 years, with a quarter fewer reading each day over that same time period. To share more with us about this topic, I'm joined now by the journalist Charlotte Lytton. Charlotte, welcome back. Lovely to talk to you again. Tell us your perspective on this issue. What is happening?
Well, speaking to academics, we can't deny, it seems, that there is a big problem here, and it starts right at school. As you read there, young children simply don't enjoy reading for pleasure as they did before. We can't deny that is also a massive part because of smartphones, because kids now are faced with all of these things vying for their attention. They just don't have to sit down and entertain themselves with a long book and nothing else as they did before. As we see from those figures with people going to study humanities at university, the decline is just going all the way because people simply are not interested in reading for pleasure as they were.
Do you get any feeling that education policy or that teachers are taking steps to counter this?
Well, there is a review of the curriculum going ahead right now, but school is a huge part of it. One of the things that has come up in this conversation is whether teachers now are dealing with crowd control, which means they can't simply encourage reading for pleasure because they're simply trying to get a hold of the students they have.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I can't believe it. We're fast approaching the end of the show because it's coming up to 49 minutes after 5 o'clock. If you just tuned in, why? Why now? You should have come in a bit earlier. But anyway, welcome. I'll welcome you for the last few minutes. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News, and it's time for Supplement Sunday, where my panel and I check out some of the stories that caught their eye. And this week, joining me, former Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib, and political commentator Andy Williams. All right, who wants to go first? We go with you, Andy Williams.
Happy to go first. Word of the year. So every year, Collins, the dictionary people, nominate the sort of new word of the year that's caught the zeitgeist. And this year's word of the year is brat, as in having a brat summer. Are you familiar with this?
No. I've heard something about it. I don't.
So this is the singer Charlie XCX coined this term brat, and it means having a confident, independent, hedonistic attitude. So behaving in a brat way, which I think is great.
It used to be an insult.
It is an insult.
It is, but now, you know, you're having a brat summer, a brat autumn, you're having a brat November.
You're like my children when they're...
You're a brat.
My children, when they're having a good time, say, oh, that was sick. And I go, really?
Yeah.
That was sick?
Yeah, that's the thing.
But that's so last season.
Is that last season?
I think it
That
is.
is a little bit,
Because
yeah.
before Sick it was Wicked, which wasn't Wicked. But
Yeah.
it was really, yeah.
So my story of the
Ben
week,
Naveed.
I mean, it's been a week devoid of good news, but 4 raccoons broke out of a zoo in the Isle of Wight.
Ah.
And one sadly was caught, but 3 females remain at large. So I've got an image of 3 female raccoons going around cows, drinking themselves silly, having a great time while they're being rounded up.
If Ben was an animal, he'd be a little raccoon. Wouldn't he? Really sweet. Yes, well, my one is, of course, the brilliant J.K. Rowling, who has praised Kemi Badenoch's brains and bravery in standing up for women's rights after she was unveiled as Tory leader. The Harry Potter author also said that Mrs. Badenoch have both vocally opposed gender ideology and with the latter insisting during her Tory leadership campaign that a child cannot be trans. You see, this is great. I like Kemi Badenoch and I love J.K. Rowling.
Well, that's
Really, what an
interesting.
inspirational woman.
J.K. Rowling was always a big Labour supporter and donor, I think.
And she
I think
was
she's
until
particularly big fan of Gordon Brown, but she's obviously seems to be potentially switching her
I think
allegiance
it's-
under Kemi Badenoch.
No, I think it's possibly because Keir Starmer struggled to identify what a woman is. And I think at that point...
That's an issue. That's an issue. If the Prime Minister can't identify what a woman is, we've got issues.
Yeah,
it's not
Well, I
sick.
think he did backtrack on those
After
comments.
2 years...
But how can you ever have that view, Andy? How can you ever think?
I think he was talking legally under law, which is where he exists in his mind, isn't it? He's a legal mind, so in law, somebody can be defined as a woman who is a man.
But his foreign secretary thinks women can grow a cervix.
Oh, I remember David Lamb,
Where
yeah.
does that come from?
I don't know.
I mean, that's not a legal view. That's just absurd.
Well, listen, for the Great British Debates, I've been asking, should Dawn Butler be stripped of the Labour whip? And according to our X poll, what do you think? What do you think, Benedict? Give your guess.
Stripped of the whip and permanently banned from the Labour Party.
Well, look at this. 97.7%. Let's round it up to 98. Of you say yes. 2.3. So let's round it up to 2% say no. Yeah, she should be stripped of that whip permanently. That's what I think. But we always love hearing what you think at gbnews.com/your say. And lots of you have been saying things, so I'll read a couple of these out. Oh, yeah, we've done that one. Yeah, we've done all these. Yeah, they're all a bit old, aren't they? I've got to say a huge thank you to my panel. Andy Williams, thank you very much for stepping in at the last minute. When are you coming back?
Whenever you'll have me.
Yeah, well...
Delighted to.
We like him, should we get him back? And also, Ben Naveed, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, thank you.
And as ever, a huge thank you to you for your company. I will finish on a few of these views if my computer will load up. Yeah, it says. So Humpty says, lovely to watch Andy rant over Trump, not accepting the lost election last time around, and then looking very silly when he was challenged over not accepting the Brexit vote. Wonderful to watch. Did you accept the Brexit vote immediately?
I did. I didn't like it. I don't like it now. I don't think it's been a good thing for the country, but that's democracy.
Bernadette says, Trump for president. He is the only one who will stop World War III commencing. I like this. And then Francis said, for God's sake, we must get people to read. I don't know why you said that, but I appreciate it. Anyway, is it me? Did I do it wrong? Listen, I've got to say a huge thank you to you for your company today. It's been a pleasure, as ever. I look forward to seeing you same time, same place next week. I'll be on Britain's Newsroom on Friday at 9:30 and back for the weekends from 3 o'clock. Have a fabulous, fabulous week. I look forward to seeing you soon. Enjoy. I'll leave you now with the weather. Take care.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good afternoon to you. This is your latest GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. We often refer to high pressure as our fair weather friends, but many of us may not be feeling particularly friendly towards the area of high pressure that we have at the moment, because it is trapping a lot of cloud across much of the UK. And because high pressure is a blocking pattern, it can stay with us for a long period of time. The cloud is also going to be